Pairing. See. Okay. It's redirected. I I'll have to check on my phone, make sure we're on. Pairing. Okay. Okay. It's redirected. Let me I'll have to check on my phone, make sure we're on. Okay. I think we may be on. Hold on, Rod. I have to check. I'm sorry, I'm not the best at technology, but once we get started, it'll rev up right up. Okay, let's see if I'm on. Yeah, I think we're on. I have to check. All right. Yeah. We're on. Okay. Peace, YouTube. Peace to the east, the west, the north, and the south. This is Fleur coming today with a very masterful, amazing guest. I think a lot of you have been waiting for this collab. So I have the amazing, masterful, wisdom-bearing Rod Hayes on an impromptu discussion this evening. So peace, everybody. Check on in. Hey, Rod.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm
Good,
just
good, good.
just happy to be here with you.
Same likewise, same likewise. So, um, we kind of were in a vibration of, especially with this galactic parlay that's happening in the sky within the last month and a half. We've been having a lot of amazing contact, governmental inception as well. We want to add that in because they got to add their little 2 cents to everything that has to do with us. But I thought it'd be great, and I know that many people, big up to everyone on YouTube land, have been waiting for us to have any kind of discussion on several different topics. But I thought because before I actually spoke to you, the monkeys were coming, the ape beings were coming. The Hunan, that masterful energy of gorilla was coming in. So I thought, what better topic than to discuss something that is interrelated with you energetically, that came in. And I have a little fascination with apes anyway. So everyone check in. I'll wait until we get about 500. I think we'll reach there very easily. Would you like to introduce yourself to the ones who don't know you? Kind of talk about Rod Hayes, the legend. Can you kind of introduce yourself?
Well, I don't see Rod Hayes the legend myself. Other people might see it that way. I'm just a regular dude with some special gifts from birth. And now I'm revealing these gifts by channeling information. And I did a massive amount of research over the years. So now all of the stuff I consume, information, is now being given back to the people as outformation.
Absolutely. Now, do
You
you,
know, it doesn't say live yet.
it's live. It's a live chat. Yeah, it's live. It won't say it on here because we're on Zoom, but it says it. I see everyone talking to you. If you like look on, I don't know if you have something else. I'm talking to you.
I'm looking. I don't see it on YouTube.
Yeah, you're there. I see you. Can everyone put a big 13 in the chat to say if you could see us? Because I see them in a live chat. We're at 379 right now. So let's see. Yeah, they're talking. Go to the live chat. Yeah, we's here. They're here. Okay, I see them. Put a
Is it on the?
13.
Do you have more than one YouTube channel?
I have, yeah, I do. Yeah, I
Oh,
do.
that's probably a problem then. I'm on the wrong. I might be on the wrong channel.
Go to regular Flurbrun, like the regular Flurbrun channel. They see you, Rod. They do.
Got it.
They putting that 13 in there.
Yep, I see it now.
I okay. So I'm gonna ask a couple things just to, for the audience to get to know you. Um, as a child, did you feel connected to things outside of what you perceive to be like the norm? Did you feel a little different than your comrades growing up? Did you have any form of uh like uh insight on things outside of others' perspective that would be considered supernatural?
When I was a little boy, they used to call me the prophet.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that wasn't coincidental. I
No.
used to tell my mama stuff, And everybody else used to be like, that boy be saying the craziest stuff. My mama said, yeah, but you know what he talking about.
Absolutely. So
Right.
your mother was aware of your gifts from a
Yes.
child.
Yeah.
Yes. So
And she was the one told me that I can't tell everybody everything I see or hear from the spirit because they'll think I'm crazy, lock me up and medicate me.
absolutely. I
So she
think
she prepped me. My mama prepped me real good for this mission. I don't know how she knew how to do it, but she did.
do you think she had some awareness of things like when she was pregnant with you or before? Was she kind of connected a little bit? You know, sometimes even though sometimes she may have not the verbiage that we use, do you kind of feel like she knew things beyond like the general consensus of everybody else?
Until the day she crossed over.
Wow.
Look,
Yeah.
my mama, we brought her home on hospice and she was in the living room in a quasi like coma. We had a whole bunch of people coming to see her at this time. And it's a group of women in the kitchen that had never, ever been in the kitchen together before. I'm watching the most amazing, it looked like they was doing a organized, synchronized cooking challenge. Nobody ain't talking. They listening to music. And I see us, one of the sisters reach back like this, another one pass her onion. I'm sitting on the couch. I'm like, how the hell do they know that she need onion? And then another one reach her hand out like this, and the girl in front of the cabinet reached the cabinet, give her the seasoning salt. And I'm like, how the hell does she know that she need the seasoning salt?
Yeah.
And then I'm watching what you call idiosyncrasies, little oddities that people doing,
Yeah.
and they acting like my mama, all of them,
Ooh,
in the kitchen.
they
And
channel.
then the food tastes like my mama cooked it.
So your mama's energy was all over and they were
Yeah,
channeling it and just
yeah,
working in sync, not even like in a quasi field, like
yeah,
just picking up the frequencies and just acting upon it.
yeah.
It's so
It's
beautiful.
like my mama had a piece of her in each one of the people in the kitchen in order to
Mm.
bring the meal together.
Oh, I got chills. I got chills. That is so beautiful.
Yeah.
I
And
don't know
when I
that.
first seen it, I didn't understand what I was looking at.
Yeah,
And then I started, just sitting there, scientific mind. I'm sitting here and I'm analyzing this. And I say, there's only one way. All of these people can't talk about what they need and they can know what each other needs. Somebody's telling them,
absolutely. Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
And that was my mitochondrial rabbit hole.
The telepathy, like the
Yeah,
intrinsic telepathy was kind of like
yeah,
working the energy, and each person, each family member is funneling in that telepathy, like almost like a field, like picking it up and just acting upon it. That's
yeah.
magic. Like that's for you to witness that and to know or recognize it, that's literally you watching, like it's almost like quantum, that's like the quantum mechanics too. It's like
Mhm.
your mom was funneling into the energy, they were picking it up and acting upon it without even knowing.
My mama is a very excellent cook. Very can't too many people outcook my mama.
Yeah.
And the food, I mean, we got cousins, we got in-laws, that's married into the family. It's like 10 different females, and at least half of them had never met before. So there's no way they should have knew the ingredients the same to make my mama food.
Absolutely.
And this is when I knew that it was more to life than this physical realm on a more deeper understanding that something is going on here. I don't know what it is, but something going on. I'm gonna figure it out. And that's one
Absolutely.
thing my mom used to always tell me, oh, baby, you'll figure it out. You smart. And then I used to get mad and I'd be like, Mom, I ain't that damn smart. She, oh, you smarter than you think you is.
You know, she knew you. She knew you before you even knew yourself. You know,
Yeah.
moms, we kind of know our children and the propensities from when they're babies. From her womb, she knew who Rod Hayes was. You know what I mean? So she knew your gifts, your challenges, and she could pick up on who you were going to be. Yeah,
When I was born, and I recited this since I've been an adult back to my Aunt Alice, and she asked me, how did I know this?
yeah.
When I was born, my mama called my Aunt Alice in the room and she said, get the baby out of here, because if you don't, they're going to kill him. I was born in Cook County Hospital in West Side of Chicago.
Mm.
And then Alice took me home with her. My mama, they poisoned my mama with bad blood. My mama O negative. They gave her something like AB positive hepatitis
Mhm.
infected blood or something crazy like that. So ended up staying in the hospital almost 9 months. after I was born, and my Alice had me. My Alice called me Black Moses since I
Oh,
was little. She always called me Black
yeah,
Moses,
yeah.
right? And different aunties had different names for me, right? My Aunt Maggie used to call me the seer,
The-
right?
What did you say? The steer? The steer?
The Seer,
The
the seer.
seer. The seer.
Yeah, she said I see stuff.
Well, when I'm looking at your eyes, because I don't get a chance to talk to you personally, so you know, you can pick up certain things of people, and because I've been in contact with people who are mediums, people who are kind of like touching the quantum field, there's a special thing that shows up in people's eyes. It's almost like a, I don't know, it's like a river or an abyss, and you have it when I'm looking at you.
Yeah,
And
that's called depth.
yeah, literally depth. Yeah. And not everybody has it, but people who generally come from specific tribes or come from prophetic kind of backgrounds, they all have that eyes and you have it. Yeah.
I used to dream the future too. I used to tell my mama my dreams. So she told me, she said, and she didn't really talk a lot about being native, but she
Mhm.
would give us clues. Like she used to tell me, she was like, well, baby, in our culture, you call it a dream walker.
Mm. Okay. There's
I
certain
was like, what
tribes
the
that
hell
have
is a
the
dream
ability.
walker?
Yeah. So
Yeah,
she knew. She knew.
yeah. And then one day I came home from school and I told her about some that we was African. She, you ain't no African. We
No.
don't know nobody from Africa. We ain't never been in no
I
Africa.
love
Where
your
you get
mama
that
already.
from? Like, yeah, I was like, I got it from school. And
Yeah.
then she used to do little subtle things to steer us away from that. Like one day I remember a key incident. They had this um house spray before they had um um those little room fresheners. We had the Indian head house spray.
Oh, I remember those. Yeah, 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 yeah.
So she picked up the can one day. We were standing in Grand Rapids, and she pointed to the Indian head. She said, "See, that's what my daddy was like."
So she knew. She
But
knew.
I was only like maybe like 6 or 7 years old, so I don't
Yeah.
know what she's talking about, right? And then they have this butter. It's called Lando Lakes.
That's my mom's favorite butter.
Yeah. She
Yeah,
pointed to the lady because there used to be a lady sitting on the lake with the sun
that's
shining
right.
on her. And
That's right.
she was like, now my mama was like this.
Oh my God.
She told me. I didn't know what she was talking about. I'm like, shorty, I don't know what
Yeah,
she's talking about.
yeah.
But in retrospect, the early childhood, the parents is teaching you critical information in what they call an off the cuff statement. Most people let that stuff go,
Mhm.
right? When I asked my father if we was from Africa, he said, I don't know where I'm from.
He didn't have
you
any
know,
connection. Yeah,
yeah, but he knew his mama is native, so he knew.
yeah. Well,
And he used to tell us about his grandmama who was a native who had hair down to her ankles.
that's right. That's
That's
right.
a that's a status symbol in the tribes.
It is. You don't
They don't
catch.
just let their hair grow down there like to their ankles like that unless you got a certain rank.
That's right. Because
And then
hair is a frequency. It picks up frequencies. It's an antenna. Yeah.
so my mama had this thing where she hated all the girls in the family to cut their hair because she felt like they was diminishing their rank.
Mm, that's deep.
And then like my sister cut her hair, my mama had a fit. And she didn't understand it. She still don't understand it because
Yeah.
she still see the world out of Western eyes.
Yeah. Well,
You
that's a
know,
social, yeah, that's a social conditioning that, they purposefully did, especially in the Americas to all the people. Because when I look at you, I come from the crowd of the it's really the Caraïbe, and we kind of stayed stationed in South America and the Caribbean. But you look like when my girls, I show my girls you, and they said you look like Papa. You look like my dad and my dad's kin. So that's the Taino side. And
mm,
because we are cousins, because from North America, all of us interfaced with each other, married within each other's family shared a lot of things from Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, all the way down into the Caribbean, Haiti, Cuba, islands. We all have, that's why we look similar, because we're all from the Americas.
yeah,
So, we had an awareness of who we were and we had an awareness of who y'all were. That was never
yeah.
hidden in our culture. Yeah.
I used to tell people, and they think I'm crazy or that I don't know what I'm talking about, but I used to say our big mamas on the mainland used to send the big mamas on the islands food stuff from the islands that they didn't grow. And they send us the stuff from the islands that we didn't. And that was a common practice
It was.
because they always sent delegations, right? It sent a delegation to Puerto Rico. Well, now it's Puerto Rico
Yeah.
and
La
Haiti,
Hispaniola, which is
Dominica,
Haiti and Dominican
yeah,
Republic. Yeah.
Cuba. So they was because they have different growing um fruits and
That's
vegetables
right.
from the islands that's different from the mainland. The only common denominator from the bottom of South America to the North Pole is corn.
That's true. That's true.
Everybody
Yeah.
participated in the corn
And the
festivals.
maize, maize.
Yeah.
Yeah. Different
Yeah.
kinds. Like the heirloom corn has the purple, some have the white, the purple, white, and the red. Not that geoengineered corn that is, what they
Yeah.
give to us here in in the States. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So we used to have corn festivals in the Southwest. We had barbecue festivals all through from Louisiana to what's called
Right.
Florida. What they call Juneteenth, that ain't got nothing to do with the emancipation of slaves. That's a big bald-faced lie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Juneteenth was the barbecue festival season. That's why it doesn't have a specific date because it took up the middle of June, the teen days.
I
Got
didn't,
nothing.
I
If
know.
you go back to the
Yeah.
stories say that somebody rode into Texas and told them that the slaves was free. The problem with that is there wasn't slavery in Texas at that time. That was Mexico.
Mm, that's right. Ooh, yes, you know your historical facts. Yes, exactly.
So why then we was when they was taking our family farms and putting us in captivity on the family farms and rebranding them as plantation and took mama out of big mama house and call it the big house, we
Mhm.
wouldn't participate, we would leave. And everybody didn't go north. The majority of us went southwest.
You're right. You're right.
Now, if you go to, like, if somebody go to Google right now that's watching and they don't know what I'm talking about, all they got to do is type Afro-Mexican,
That's right. That's right.
right? We was already there, though, because
We
what
were.
you know,
Yeah.
what we told our Aztec, Incas, and Mayans and Olmecs, them was the old Mississippians by another name.
Go ahead,
Same
Rob.
tribe. The biggest tribe on the land was the old Mississippians. This is the parent tribe to your 5 civilized tribes, your Washita nations, your Iroquois nations, your Hopi, your Cheyenne. All of
Right.
these different tribes are offshoots of the old Mississippi. That's the root tribe to the land,
That's right. And we share
right?
there's a blood type that's shared amongst those people as well. That
Yeah.
references that's fact. Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
now on the East Coast, we had ships that sailed back and forth between what we call now the motherland and the Americas. And
Mhm.
for blood diversification reasons, so we don't have birth defects, we intermarried with the royal families on that continent over here. This long before Columbus was even gleaming his daddy eye. His daddy probably wasn't even born. And we was doing this. Matter of fact, his 7th great grandfather, twice removed, probably wasn't born, and we was doing this. In the BC
Absolutely.
period, we was sailing ships on the East Coast, making trade with Africa. The original Navy was the Mississippian Guard that guarded the Mississippi River and the Gulf.
Mm.
We don't know that because we think that we was just some savages because that's what they told us, and we have no capabilities of construction, but we got castles that they didn't converted into state buildings and prisons all over the land.
Yeah. And
And
also,
they all before Columbus.
yeah, and the Moors had technology beyond anything that Europe had ever saw. A lot of that European technology came after they were exposed to the Moors, right? And the Moors
Well,
were the ones who
that's who we've been fighting for the last 400 years, 500 years.
absolutely.
Because the
And they're
the ones in
supported.
Europe, yeah, the ones that's in Europe, right? The ones that was in Europe that came from the Babylonian Empire. Now,
Mm,
they made converts out of some people called Khazars
that's right.
and some people that was called Sephardi.
Yep. The
If you
Sephardic
look in the
Khazars.
12 tribes of Israel, there is no tribe called Khazar,
No,
Ashkenaz, or Sephardi.
They're
Those are
converts.
converts.
They're converts, yeah. Yeah.
Right. Now, the
For
reason they
tax reasons,
use
for
them,
political reasons, yeah.
that's called the blood shield to conceal the actual power players behind the scenes.
Hmm.
That's where you get your term Rothschild from. Blood shield, the protectors of the Holy Grail lines. But the Holy Grail line is not Jewish. The Holy Grail line is the earthborn, the Idama.
Well, Jewish didn't exist. J didn't exist. There was no J.
Right,
Anything J-E, like Jesus, Jewish, it wasn't in the language at the time. That's further down the line. Yeah.
right. And then they wasn't called Israelis either.
No.
That's the irony,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Israel didn't exist until
Yeah. It
1948.
was
So you
Palestine.
wasn't calling them Israelis.
No. That was a colonized term created by the Rothschilds. Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that was all Zionist propaganda for domination and global conquest. When they came over here, they had a standing order to not approach the Americas, and they violated it. And that's why
Yep.
they end up sending Columbus over here. Columbus didn't come over here looking for a new trade route. He was looking for a homeland for the exiles from the Spanish Inquisition and the French
Mm.
Revolution, right? So they getting kicked out of Europe in mass. They got a stopover point in the north of Africa called Al Maghrib. Today we know it as Morocco,
Morocco.
Libya,
Yeah.
Tunis, right, all the way up to the border of what we call today modern Egypt.
That's why they called America at one point the capital was Morocco because of that connection.
Right, but really what they was talking about, they're not talking about Morocco. Morocco has not been a country but less than like 100 years.
Yeah, it's new.
Right? So who was the ancient Moroccans if Morocco didn't exist in ancient times? See, people don't like to talk about that. They get offended because they've been trapped in the dogmatic web of religion. But the reality of it is this was called the land of Tahuti. Europe and Asia was the land of Isis.
Yes.
Africa and part of southern India was called the Ethiop, or became later known as Ethiopia, which was the land of Prince Ea, commonly known as Enki. It was three major regions of the earth during the time of Atlantis. The tribes over here, we didn't care what they did on their own land. They ain't got nothing to do with us over here. Until they tried to impose their will on us.
Absolutely.
And then they conjured my ass up. And here I am.
Resurrected in the times of the reset. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So let's kind of fast forward in that. Your mind, like your historical like references is like stellar. Like, usually, you get to people and generally they have bits and pieces. You have the full catalog, like from beginning to end, which is nice. It's refreshing. It's refreshing. You're teaching me some things, which is nice. I like to be taught sometimes, you know what I mean? Get some information that like makes my brain like go tweak, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I'm standing
let's
on the
kind of,
shoulder of giants, Floor.
what'd you say?
I'm standing on the shoulder of giants.
You are. You are. Um, let's kind of move on to the Americas and how, over the last couple of hundred of years, how things have changed. But, we were kind of bringing in this new, I don't think it's new. We were talking about like, we're bringing a little bit of that galactic. I don't want to even say galactic because it's kind of generic, right? It's really just an interdimensional kind of energy and beings that are connected to each of the realms, right? So what I talked about when you first came in, before I even spoke to you, and energy with me comes first before I even talk to you. And I speak about months ago being connected to beings that were gorillas, ape type beings, right? And during my contact, they came and I was kind of like feeling this ape type energy. And when I was in Brazil living for a bit, I talk about when I was in the jungle, I stayed in the jungle in the middle, in a home in the jungle. And the monkeys, moquecas, would not come towards me. They were frightened of me. They wouldn't come and approach me. They wouldn't touch me. They would run away. They didn't come near the house. And we were dumbfounded. So we figured it was that part of Brazil. So we went to another part of Brazil. It's the same thing. Fast forward now, I realized after I had contact with the gorillas, the ape, the Kong beings, which I know you're connected to, when they came with a little bit of like technology attached to them, almost like the movie. And I
Yeah.
found that really interesting. Before I saw the movie, I saw a bit of remnants, meaning that they had some technology that was beyond my comprehension, because they always make it seem like monkeys are remedial, savages, like just some sub-tier group. But it's far from that. And I realized the one monkey that others have reverence to and a little bit of fear of is the gorilla, the Kong being. And because I didn't had some interface with these beings, the moqueca, the monkey in Brazil, I had that energy and they're frightened of that. And it's not really frightened, they just have an understanding that whatever I'm connected to has a little more strength and reverence, and they just kind of keep a distance from that. So with you, because again, it came in a wave with you. It was interesting. It was all night. I was like, oh my God. I was like, I didn't realize it until it happened. I was like, oh Lord. The algorithm on my phone was like gorillas, monkeys, like big things, big mouths open. I was like, oh, that's right. Okay. And I asked you some questions before to ask you, because I'm always interested in your Chinese astrology. And you let me know that your Chinese zodiac is a monkey. Okay. So
Yeah.
you already carrying that energy on you, along with a little bit of, well, a lot of that Scorpion, Scorpion King energy as well. Um, so I want to kind of touch on that a little bit because I was fascinated and I really want to know your take on it. I'm really curious. And I told you I have a curiosity and I've never really talked to you before. So I get to
Mhm.
ask you all the fun questions that I only want to ask you. So,
Okay.
so when we're thinking about the monkey, the gorilla beings, the Hunan, which is really the Hindu god, the gorilla god, can you give us a little information on that god? Because that is something that's here. It's always been here. And I want to kind of touch that with you and then talk about some things that are going on that I think is coming in the field that has to do with those beings.
Okay, so the gorilla key is called the primate key. In every major landmass where there's a river basin forest, is called a Congo region. In South America, it's the Amazon. In North America, it's the Mississippi. In Africa, it's the Nile, and it's another river called the Zambezi, I think, that has a Congo basin, right? This is the symbolism um, in totem animal magic. The gorilla symbolizes the father that looks over the family,
Mm.
right? And that's what's called the gorilla key. We also call the gorilla key the fuck it key. And what that means is when you did everything reasonably possible for you to do, just say fuck it. Because then now you let the universe have it, and the universe is going to make the adjustments to whatever errors you had and correct it and solve the problem for you. So when you get to Hanuman, right, Hanuman literally translates into English as handyman.
Yeah.
And his reputation is Hanuman completes all tasks, no task too big, no task too small. If you want the problem solved, you give it to the Hanuman,
Mm.
right? In China, he's called Sun Wukong, the Monkey King, right? And the Sun Wukong, the Monkey King, the legends say he was trapped in the Stone Mountain for 500 years until Titicaca came and spoke the sacred incantation to release him.
Mm.
Where else do you hear something about something being hewn from a mountain? Book of Daniel.
Hmm.
The final blow to the Babylonian Empire. A single stone hewn from the side of the mountain. The side of the mountain is symbolic to the government, right? Mountains represent governments in the biblical literary metaphor. So one individual will be separated from the rest of the society in order to solve the problem of bringing down the Babylonian Empire by striking the feet of iron and clay.
Mm. Which is,
Right.
I got it. Wait, just because when you said that, the clay, you said say that again, that last thing you said?
The stories say that a single stone was hewn from the side of the mountain,
Yeah,
and it struck the Babylonian Empire in the feet, made of iron and clay.
interesting. Because you know, the Jewish people call people golem, which are like clay people.
Yeah,
And
Gulam is the fabricated human with the incantation to the forehead to animate him.
mm,
Right. This is why in law, human beings are called monsters.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Right. That's what they're talking about. A made being, a being made from the dirt of the earth, a Gulam.
Golem, yeah. Why I mentioned that is you said the feet and then the mountains because Mountain of Hermon over in Syria was just conquered by the Jewish people, Israelis. And it's
Mhm.
interesting that you said that. I'm just, go ahead.
You got to also remember Mount Hermon is supposed to be the place where Simyaza and his cohorts made the agreement
Mhm.
to subjugate the people of the earth.
Yes, yes,
Well, these were in the Sumerian tablets, those were called Igigi.
yes.
Okay, now you had another mountain over there, they call it Sinai, CNAI. Sin, when they call you a sinner, they telling you that you are a practitioner of Babylonian rites of sin. Why do they call them the rites of sin? They was written by a Babylonian son of Enlil named Ninursin. And anybody practicing these blood rituals, money magic, sex magic, according to the Babylonian tradition, is a perpetual sinner.
Mm,
Because you born in sin. I mean, you born into these customs and you don't know what you practicing. To be sure that you a sinner, they make sure you practice something called a Eucharist
mm.
or a
Yeah,
communion. That's
yeah.
a simulated blood ritual.
The Catholics, ways of the Catholic, yeah. You take the
Yeah.
flesh is the wafer and the blood of Christ is the wine. Yes.
Simulated cannibalism.
Hmm. Absolutely.
That's a blood right ritual. It's not haphazard. They know what they doing.
Absolutely.
They not gonna do it the same as you gonna do it, because they just trying to, they got the little priest up there, he don't know what he doing. He think he really following something, but the Pope know what's up.
I know that's
Well,
right.
used to be popes. Now that robot that they calling the Pope, now he know what's up. He's a whole android that they put under the bed at night.
They fold them up and put them under and just take them out and turn on the battery. Turn it.
They
Okay.
don't even use him on a day-to-day basis. They probably use him probably a couple times a month.
They're trying to conserve energy, Rod. You know, we're in that green energy time, you know. So we're doing. We have to
Conservation
stay.
of energy, energy conservation. Anyway, so the legend of the Monkey King Hanuman, okay, when he was in the form of Sun Wukong, he was unruly, difficult to control. So the Buddha gave Tipikaka a ring to put on his head to block his psychic abilities
Mhm.
so she can control him. If she say a certain incantation, the ring crushes his head energetically and stops him from doing whatever he's doing.
Hold. Is that the reason why people wear crowns, metal crowns? Is it a form of mind control programming? Is that why or
Mm-mm.
no? Okay, okay. Just go ahead. I'm sorry.
The crown is that's a Babylonian symbol as well of rulership. Over here, we didn't use gold crowns. We used stuff
Feather.
related to nature
Yeah, feather, pine cones, things of that nature.
and animal skins.
Yeah.
Right.
Horns.
So the chiefs depend what they were for identifiers depend on what was their tribal totem animal
Mm-hmm.
and what was the root tribe they was from. Like when you see Big Tookie, that big 6'4", 280-pound, all muscled with that big old afro, this is so his soldiers can see him on the battlefield. No matter where they at, they know where he at. And as long as they see him, they gonna fight to the bitter end. You can't stop one of them from fighting. Those are called Afro chiefs. right? That's an old Mississippian practice. Those were tribes that used to live in tree scaffoldings across the South. They chopped down all the trees to get them out of
Yes,
the
my
trees.
grandmother actually meant she was 104 and she mentioned something about them people living in the trees and something about
Mm-hmm.
that's why some of the trees were burned down or they did milling at the time in that area specifically because of those people. She mentioned
Yeah.
that years ago when I was a little girl. Yeah.
And then the ones that lived in the swamp, they wore animal skins, mainly the alligator. They came from in Egypt is known as the Sobek priests. They used to ride alligators into combat in Florida. That's why they started gator baiting the children to make the gators interested in the flavor of the people that they didn't eat.
Oh, I know that's right. Woo.
They even have old pictures of us. They didn't change and whitewash the imagery now, where these people that rode the alligators is pale faced. But that's not true. That was us. And the big mamas used to get the what they call the anointed oil from the alligator. It's the sacred elixir. It's a gold color oil, look like olive oil, to anoint the next chief. In spiritual practice, you know that you can use what's called a reasonable substitute when the actual thing is not available. They came over here as vampires, bloodsuckers, and cannibals.
They still are.
We was already here wearing wolves, so they called us werewolves. And they say we look like kin, but we not, so they called us lichens.
Mm. God, Rod.
So they tell us a story in the movies, and they called the movies the Twilight, where the ones that you see native turning into wolves, but the ones that came from Europe is all vampires. They telling you the story.
They do. The natives were the wolves. Yes, yes. And the others
And
were the vampires. Yeah. And you know, they used
right
to,
now, this is how
yeah.
you know that the vampires wasn't pale. When they got into the sun, their skin glistened like crystals.
Yeah.
That's called prismatic melanin, according to Dr. Phil Valentine.
Mm.
But they can trick you with cinema by whitewashing the character, so you don't even know what prismatic melanin is, so you will never make the correlation.
Interesting.
You see, a good example is Brother Kalai. Brother Kalai up in Philadelphia, in the summertime when he's standing in the sun, you can literally see it look like he got tiny crystals in his skin.
I've seen people like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They
But he
usually,
wanted he wanted Earthborn,
yeah.
right? But a lot of the stuff we don't know about our history, and it's been told to us in a upside down, backwards fashion to confuse us as to who we are. So we won't never exercise our birthright to reclaim and restore might, justice, balance, equilibrium back to the land, the people. In order to do this, you need a certain type of government. We call it the tribal government, the great law,
Yes.
the way of the mother. We don't call it patriarchy. We call it the way of the mother.
Yeah.
The way of the mother became Europeanized as a term called matriarchy,
Yeah.
but it literally the way of the mother. The mother is the nurturer in the household, but she can't nurture if she at war.
Well, also they decapitate her from the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. She's no
Mm-hmm.
longer even present in the prayers or the concept of, being in
But
that
she's
divinity.
ever present. She's just concealed. That's why they call it the concealed mother
Mm.
or the hidden goddess in Mason. Hold on, let me show you something.
Yeah. Y'all give Rod Hayes like he is, Fleur Ronan is like in like intellectual heaven. He is such a wonderful like wisdom bearing. Oh wait, Freemasonry and the Hidden Goddess. I've never seen that book before, Rod.
This
Who wrote
is
that
one
book?
of them. It's Freemason and the hidden goddess. She's hidden in plain sight though, and I'm gonna tell you how to find her. Get you a Strong's exhaustive concordance of the Bible and look up the name Jesus.
Mm.
Remember, the letter J 500 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Now, go to the laws of grammar. Write the word according to phonetics,
Mm-hmm.
and you will come up.
Jesus.
It's no Y. It's Greek, not Hebrew.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Yeah,
The New Testament was not written in Hebrew.
you're right.
It was originally written in Greek, and it's Iesous.
Oh my God.
Now
What?
look, unto us a child is given, unto us a son is born, and we shall call his name Emmanuel. How many times did they call him Emmanuel in the story?
My mind is blown. I did. Oh my God. What? So Emmanuel was the name previous to what they perceive as Jesus. That was never Jesus was just a
The
fictitious.
story of Isis and Horus told to us by a fiction writer by the name of Josephus Flavius. It's just that when the Constantinian Nicene Council got a hold of it, they had to try to figure out how to separate the mother, the most important character in the Bible, away from the son. So they give all the glory to the son, and it's gonna piss the son off because you denying his mama was rightfully hers.
That's right.
And they teaching these people to follow Emmanuel under the mama name Isis, but they gave it a J in order to confuse the mind and the psyche. But when they gave it the J, they called it the fish hook, because I shall make you fisher of men. And ain't no man gonna catch more men than a woman. Let that sink in. Ain't no man gonna catch more men than a woman.
Y'all, you gotta please give a 13 to the, oh my God, this is amazing. I never
13 is the
saw that.
queen mother's seal, the mother of the
That's right.
king.
That's right.
But the king had to emerge as a prince first before he ascended the throne as the king. And there is no man that's a kingmaker. Every kingmaker is a woman.
Absolutely. Yes.
You can't be the king unless you crown by the woman. Go back and look at David when he was laying in his deathbed, and one of his sons declared himself the king. And Bathsheba came to him and said, you know, your son that ran around out there, he think he done just took over, you still living. And it offended David. And David said, well, what do you reckon I should do? He said, you should crown Solomon. He the wisest of them all. So David called all of his staff in there and say, when I cross over, I'm leaving the throne to Solomon. It can be, even you can even go back before that. When Esau and Jacob was wrestling over the birthright in the womb and they came out, the mama took side with Jacob, but the rightful heir was Esau. Esau mean earthborn.
Mm-hmm.
Jacob mean underminer.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So the mother dressed the Jacob up because Isaac was blind. He put her on a fur coat, and she cooked Esau's soup that he cooked for his father. And it tasted just like his soup. So who he learned to cook it from? And she sent Jacob in with his fur coat on and a bowl of soup to get the blessing from his father to run the kingdom. But he had to pretend to be Esau.
Mm.
It goes back before that. In the Adam and Eve story, when Cain slew Abel, right? Cain slew Abel out of jealousy, but what was he jealous for? He was the one who came with the meat because he was a farmer, and he was a herdsman. And Abel was the farmer who grew the vegetables. And they liked the vegetables, more than they liked the meat. So it offended Cain. So he caught his brother in the field and killed him.
Mm.
Right. So then the Eve prayed according to the text, and she was given Seth.
Yeah.
Right. And she said, today we will call his name Seth, for the Lord has granted my prayer and gave me a replacement for Abel. It's all in there.
I think, there was a debate. It wasn't really a debate. You would have been the appropriate person to deal with some people who had some biblical information, but you would have been the appropriate um, participant in such a conversation. You've gotten information like for days, just archives. It's amazing.
Yeah. The reason I don't do debates for two reasons. One is I got to use somebody else's reference.
Absolutely.
And most of the people that we reference is secret society. Second one is when you tell somebody you getting information from a psychic source, you automatically invalid.
Absolutely. They always say it's not even legitimate. Yeah.
Because we can't cross-reference psychic information. We can only cross-reference what somebody else said a long time ago. Right? Then you got to go by it. Even if you use modern judicial standards, the courts tell you eyewitnesses are not always reliable.
Not at all.
You can have 20 people watch the same event and they gonna give you 20 different stories.
Absolutely.
So how do I know who to accept as an accurate source? If it's not a direct source, it's not accurate.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, when you go look at the history of the Bible, ask yourself who wrote it, and how do you know who wrote it?
No one was there to reference it.
Nobody's here that was there to tell us who wrote it.
Yeah.
Right.
You have to listen to those styrofoam cups and listen to the general consensus of each generation that gives us. And then speaking another language, you already know when we translate the language, you always lose like parts of the translation is always non-accurate.
That goes to a part of the grand deception of the biblical, Christianity was the first religion. It's only three religions, and they all monotheistic Judeo-Christian religions, and that's Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. And that's the order that they was presented to the public. Judaism is not older than Christianity. It was the convenient backstory for the rebels who didn't want to go with the story as it was given. Right? So if you go back to the time frame of the life of the so-called character they call Jesus, right? And they say he existed between 3 AD and 37 AD or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, now, at that time, who was ruling in Egypt?
Pharaoh?
Cleopatra.
You're right. You're right.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Where's Cleopatra's tomb? Okay, let me put this another way. When the woman is in charge of the governments of Egypt, what was she called by the people of the land?
I don't know.
She was called by two terms. She was either referred to as Aset.
Yes.
Or Marie.
Yes.
In English, it would be Isis or Mary.
Yes, because Mary.
Hail Mary, Mother of God.
Yes, yes.
How in the hell is you the mother of God and you ain't God? You can't birth something greater than you.
Birth God if you're not a God yourself. Yeah. Only goddess can birth a God. Yes.
Right. So now, if you go back to the contemporary time and you look at the other events of the era that we given along with this doctrine, you're going to notice that Cleopatra was said to be, she was supposed to die in her maiden chamber by death adder. Now, also in that time, you had two warring factions of priests that started. The war started in the reign of King Tut, which made him have to be ushered into hiding. And these warring priest factions was called Amun priests and Aten priests. The ideology difference is the Amun priests said, conceal your inner light. Do not let the world know of your divinity. Right? Pretend to be like everybody else and live high on the hog. The Aten priest was like, no, if you got the God gene and you got the God power, shine your light into the world. Remember this parable about the candle under the basket?
Yes. Yes.
Right? And then he say, when these two eyes become one, and then you become the light of the world. Gerald Massey wrote the book, Ancient Egypt, Light of the World.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, now, when we looking at Cleopatra, they saying she died in her maiden chamber at the hands of the adder, but they don't have her tomb. They don't have her grave site. They don't know where she went. She disappeared from the face of the earth 3 days after she died. Do the math.
Until you asked that question, I had no clue. I always thought it was there, but no, we have no reference to it ever.
So Cleopatra is actually a confusion of terms. And it's if you look at it Masonically, it literally says, see Leo, the panther. This makes you addicted to the cat. You become a cataholic. A cataholic is a Catholic. The Pope sits under the sacerdotal seat, but the sacerdotal seat is the seat of Vatica, the goddess, who was called Vatica in Greek, but she was called Auset in the Kemetic language.
Yeah.
Right? Jacob is the underminer. The Pope sits under her seat. Do the math. The math be mathing if you know if you know all of the equations.
Y'all.
Okay, now, Cleopatra mysteriously disappeared. You go to Australia now, because in Australia, there's a legend about a woman came from Egypt running from assassins across the Queen's land. The same imagery that they drew in their petroglyphs on their stones was a woman holding a baby that looked just like the Black Madonna and Child. So they used, okay, go to the movie The Serpent and the Rainbow for the reference for what I'm about to tell you next.
Okay.
The priesthood knew how to sedate you where you have no vitals.
Yeah,
right.
Dust, that magic, the dust.
Mm-hmm. So they need to get Cleopatra from under the Roman rulership. The only way to get her out of there is to feign her death.
So you're saying Cleopatra faked her death and was relocated?
Yeah. When she left Australia, she sailed to South America and they migrated all the way up into North America. The tribes was concealing them the whole way. This is your Sun Wukong's journey to the west. Nazca lines are eagle and the monkey, the phoenix and the monkey. How is Sun Wukong supposed to get to the west from India and Africa in the way? Now, we know this to be valid because
I gotta take a deep breath. Like, you're blowing my mind, and I'm just like, my brain is like tweaking. Hold on, Rod. You can't deliver information like, like, listen, hold the monkey. Hold on. Let me take a deep breath. Y'all, I hope y'all ready. I hope you got, like, listen, you have me in such a state of like mental, intellectual euphoria. I'm bugging out. I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay. Okay. I think I'm there. Go ahead, Rod. Go ahead.
Okay, so now, and what we know today is the Grand Canyon has the oldest sacerdotal seats of the earth.
Yes. Yes. Oh my God. And we
Temple
just,
of Isis, Temple of Tahuti.
yes.
Now, there has to be a way where the ancestors leave us to reclaim everything. We call it the redemption process. How do you get from under admiralty jurisdiction and get back to the jurisdiction of the land? That's the great dilemma that we in, because everybody from your militia, Montana militia, to your Archway law, to your sovereign citizens, to your Moorish paradigm, they all trying to get from under admiralty jurisdiction, but they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
They keep using the admiralty rulings in order to try to force them to acknowledge their own rules.
Yes.
They don't
Yes.
acknowledge their rules when it apply to us.
Not at all. Not at
They
all.
only acknowledge them when it's to their benefit. That's why you have so many innocent people in prison. They don't care nothing about you screaming innocent. They don't care. I don't mean nothing to them. Everybody innocent according to them. That's what they tell you. Everybody in prison say they innocent. I ain't tell nobody that BS. I was guilty of sin. But I had a valid reason though. But I didn't never tell them. So they didn't never know. Right? So in the challenge to admiralty jurisdiction, you have to go back to your own cultural, historical record of oral tradition. In modern law tells you the parameters for what you call a oral law enforcement. It has to be in the public domain in a timestamp archivable format. Social media meets the criteria for public notice.
Sure. Sure.
The next thing you have to know in your public notices is who did it? The Dirty Moors. Where they come from? Europe. They got exiled, kicked out, came over here. Under the who told them to come over here? It was the discovery doctrine of the Pope and the papal bulls of the several popes before that. Right? Okay, so now we know who did it and where they came from and who sent them. Why did they come over here? Because when they brought them to the earth, wherever the hell they came from, other dimension, other planet, other somewhere, they didn't have a home nowhere on the planet.
No.
Okay, now that brings about a question that any sane person would ask. Well, where the hell they come from and how did God create somebody that don't got a homeland? We had a homeland. They want our homeland.
I have some theories to that, but you know.
Right. So now we hear about the Jewish God telling them he promised them a homeland. Mm-hmm. But if he's a righteous God, he doesn't have to take anything from anybody to give his people a homeland. He would have created them where they supposed to be and left them there.
Well, that's what the Orthodoxy, a segue of the Orthodoxy Hasidite community believe, that they aren't supposed to go to Israel. They're supposed to roam until such time.
Okay, now that takes you to the book of Job. Where comest thou, Satan? The sons of God came to prostrate before the Lord. And Satan came also among them. And the Lord said to Satan, where comest thou? And Satan said, from roaming to and forth, up and down, back and forth in the earth. Nomads. No homeland. Right? So if they don't got no homeland and Satan don't got no homeland and Satan is promising everything to the Christ from the hill, remember? Yeah. And the Christ was like, how the hell you gonna promise me this? You can't give me nothing. My father gives me everything. Right? Remember?
I do.
And he would refuse to bow down before Satan. Well, who the hell is Satan?
Who is Satan?
So Satan is an Egyptian word. It's two words, and they've been the positioning of the words was changed for the purposes of translation.
Absolutely.
The letters EN means literally Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Lord Set is Satan, the one who slew his brother in order to take his throne.
That's right.
All that sound familiar. Them sibling rivalries from Cain and Abel to Jacob and Esau to Set and Osiris to Enki and Enlil. The same story keep repeating.
It's the same. It's zeitgeist. It's the same story over and over, repeating. It's the same thing. Yeah.
Now, it's seasoned like a good cooked meal with the culture of the local people. If the local people believe something, they will adapt that same storyline
to fit their narrative and their culture.
To fit their culture.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, now, understanding that, when you're looking at it from that lens, you start to see that we had a savior story over here. It's called Popol Vuh. But we didn't have no brother sibling rivalry over here.
No, it wasn't a story in the lexicon of any of the natives here. No.
Right, because now that they've been over here, they got something called, I think it's called the Panapi Bible or the Lenape Bible, where they said that they killed Jesus and they wasn't never even over there in the Middle East. They had to change the narrative because they said, so you people killed your God and you want us to follow your God after y'all killed him. We don't ascribe. No. But when the translators retranslated it, it said that the Lenape killed Jesus.
Yeah. They'll just change it to fit the narrative of the culture and the land map, wherever they're living.
And we have what you call modern paradigms to show us the historical repeat. Example, when they came over here and set up America, they set up what's called an interim government. It was a wartime interim government. The modern example is the Gulf War after 9/11, when they put Muhammad Karzai in power. That's the same thing they did to Adam Weishaupt, and they called his name George Washington.
Okay.
So the stories, they all scramble like eggs. It's like unscrambling an egg. It's almost impossible, but it's not. Right? Now, when you're looking at the understanding of a interim government, then you will realize why the police is an occupying foreign military power masquerading as serving and protecting the people of the land, when they charter and they instructions come from the Crown of England in London.
Right. Yes. Sure.
Hold on 1 second.
Take your time. All right, is everybody enjoying this? My mind is blown, like little pieces of the puzzle putting together. Yeah. I'm not as biblically sound, but little things that I know, and you're putting that together, cinching in bits of information that had no place, that now have a place, can house somewhere that I didn't have an understanding of.
Yeah. So the first gods that was creating people was women by parthenogenesis.
Absolutely. And still to this day, there are women who still participate based on genetics and some environmental factors, can still give birth through parthenogenesis. Not very often, but occasionally you'll get it. Can still give birth through parthenogenesis. Not very often, but occasionally you'll get it.
It happens more than we possibly could imagine.
More than they'll report.
Yeah, sometimes you will have a child and the girl only been with one man the last 5 years, right? She have a baby, but the DNA don't match.
That's right.
Because
Absolutely.
the woman, all of the people that she dated before that, that she had sex with, she have their genetic data in the queen's chamber of her brain.
We keep all DNA. We keep it and we source it. And what's interesting about that is that most women, and this is not, we're not medical, we're not doctors. I have to say that this is, quack quack. But, when we talk about fibroids and the people who have the most fibrotic kind of symptoms or have that in their body tend to be melanated women. Those are the original women that were able to give birth through the process of parthenogenesis. So with some of the things that they give people at birth, I personally, as someone who worked in genetics, think it's something that was meant to stop and hold that process of being able to birth ourselves.
It's totally possible because the fibroids is normally the side effect of an acute toxin buildup around the uterine area.
Mhm, mhm.
So when the body try to stop a toxin, it normally encapsulates it in a pus ball, and over time the pus ball turns into a tumor
It does. It does.
because
But
it's
sometimes with
steady sending.
hair, teeth, nails, reminiscent
Yeah.
of a little being. Yeah,
And so you don't know that a woman can have a man in front of her and he got missing qualities genetically that she want to produce. So she go into the queen's chamber in her brain, pull out
she
her
fills it in.
library of DNA,
That's right.
and use him as the outline, and then she fill in the template.
She colors in the lines. Yeah.
Yep, that's
I think so.
mitochondrial power at work.
Absolutely. And this is also why back in the days, kings and other men only wanted virgins because they overstood and understood that if they weren't the first to participate with this young lady, most likely she was stockpiling DNA from previous lovers. Yes,
Yep, and that's why the virgin has been revered so greatly,
absolutely.
right? And um, most men don't want to take care of another man's child if he could have his own.
Absolutely. And there's nothing wrong with that.
And that's social engineering as well, because if you go to the gorilla clan, look at a tribe of gorillas, right?
Hmm.
The silverback, he ain't the father to all of the children in the clan,
No, no, he
but
isn't.
he will give you the same amount of the business about one of the ones that ain't his as he give you about his.
That is true. Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
So this is why the gorilla totem is a powerful totem for an aspiring father to be associated with, because he's going, if he accept that woman and she got babies, them his,
that's right.
because
Yeah,
he gonna give you the same amount of the business about the ones that he taking care of as the ones he produced.
that's right.
He's not gonna discriminate. He gonna f you up about all of them,
That's right.
right? And that protective instinct is a father's instinct that matches the mama bear. Like, people don't understand that women have the ability to use the laws of nature to her advantage to protect her children, right? When you look at the mama bear as the prime example of what I'm talking about, she can be 150, 200 pounds smaller than a big male bear.
Hmm.
She can't beat him if she ain't got no babies. He'll run her away
Hmm.
if she ain't got no babies. But if she got some babies,
Oh, she'll bring
she's
it to him.
activating multiple laws of nature simultaneously. Her
Mm.
ferocity is unmatched,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
right? And then she got him on the run. She'll run off a whole pack of wolves about her babies
She will. She
by
will.
herself,
Hmm.
right? That's the woman in Shakti mode, in Kali Ma
Hmm.
mode, in Sekhmet mode.
That's right.
The
Taking
goal
heads.
is for a man to come into a woman's life that's in that mode and take her from Sekhmet to Bast, or to Isis, or to Venus, or to Oshun.
Yeah,
He don't want her to come in with that war energy, because now he at war in his own home. And he
yeah.
don't even know why. Because I don't know what your linguistic restrictions is, but she see you as a bitch ass nigga. And since she see you as a bitch ass nigga, she can't boss up or relax, create the feng
I
shui,
agree. I agree.
the heaven at home, because she don't know if somebody
Yeah.
come crawling in the window at night, do she got to go confront the enemy?
Yes, exactly. The
Because
beta.
his bitch ass might be behind the bed hiding.
That's right. Or screaming, running. You've seen it like,
All that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Now they make parodies out of it and they turn it into comedy so
They
it
do.
seems somewhat normal.
Yeah, they're normalizing it. Men running away, running in front of the women, leaving the women vulnerable to whatever comes, to attack them.
That's not, and under the matriarchy, it's zero tolerance for bitch assness in men.
I'm with you on that. Yeah.
That's not tolerated under matriarchy. But when you being governed and ruled, and your future is dictated by homosexual pedophile priest cults, they want to effeminize the man to hypermasculize the women so that we will slow down our reproductive rate, so that
Absolutely.
they can control our baby producing abilities.
Mhm. And they're doing well, it's really affecting many other, they thought it wouldn't affect the birth rates of others, but it's affecting, those other people are having zero birth rate now
We baby
because of that.
kids.
Hmm?
We baby kids.
Yeah. We don't
This
die,
is the
we
thing that they
multiply.
found out during the last 500 years that they didn't believe was true.
Hmm.
The harder you oppress us, the more we proliferate.
Oh, absolutely. As a survival mechanism.
Yeah.
Anywhere where you have mothers that have the most amount of poverty, and you see it in places like South America and Africa, where there's the most amount of poverty and adversity, you'll see a multiple births coming out of that to give her more of a chance of survival and for her bloodline to be able to have some form of satisfaction, whether it's one or two. So you'll give birth to 10 if you have a higher mortality rate, just to give you a chance to progress your.
If you go back to the 70s and the 60s, they was trying to encourage what they called the four family household. A man, a woman, a boy, and a girl. Don't want you to have no more than two children.
Mm-mm,
And
mm-mm.
they use that as a standard in the wealthy community
Of
and
course.
the ones that were so-called privileged,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's so that they can say the reason that I'm poor is because I got all these babies,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? Which is not true.
No.
The
Tribal children
wealth,
always were assigned and built wealth. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
yeah,
So the large families are the ones who have the most capability of overcoming the oppression, because one of them in that family is going to see something that the rest of them not going to see.
that's right.
So our women was having 12, 13, 15, 18, 20, sometimes 30 kids,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? And don't mention the fathers.
That's what Planned Parenthood was for, back
Right.
in the
That was
hood.
to slow down, trying to stop baby kids because they
Mhm.
can't stop us.
We gonna have babies until we die.
Yeah.
And that's what we were supposed to do, reproduce. And that's part of being fruitful, right?
Yeah. Be fruitful, multiply, replenish the earth.
Absolutely. Yeah.
How can you
Yeah,
replenish something that don't have nobody here?
it's true. And also,
Replenish means to fill it back up. It's been depleted,
yeah. And also
right? That's a refill.
absolutely. And also that's why they promote, menopause, pausing on men from many different places, from the islands, give birth until darn near they nearly die or kaput.
Mm-hmm.
But they make certain processes that you have to go through, telling women to go get your daily mammogram, and then all of a sudden, oops, oh, your menses is gone. I wonder why.
Yeah. Well, that's chemically induced.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
One of the biggest causes of menopause is birth control pills,
Absolutely. And
right?
birth control pills are not only in the pill form, they're in food form too. Remember that.
Yeah. And now it's in the water,
Oh, yeah, yeah,
along with the hormones and all that.
yeah. Psychedelic
Uh,
foods, yeah, all that good stuff.
so now you got animals that don't have the level of resistance of a human spontaneously gender transitioning.
Mhm. started with the frogs first, most sensitive to the environment, right?
Mhm.
You know, frogs were switching sexual disposition, actually gaining some of the gonads, actually growing wombs because of the exposure in the soil to the lexicon of chemicals that were coming out of the sky via the governmental chemtrails, which are harmless, according to the federal government.
For the last, ever since the first Trump election, they've been spraying stuff to try to clean that up. And this is why you have it looking like rocks falling out the sky.
Mm,
It's binding agents that bind to those chemicals to get them out
mm.
of the air. In some places, your snow, it looked like styrofoam because
Oh yeah,
it's
yeah,
binding agents.
yeah.
In some places, they even literally raining rocks.
Yeah.
Well, all that's the stuff that they using to clean up the chemtrails. Well, we don't know. We out here going about our daily life, la-di-da-di-da. Somebody was terraforming the earth for a new species to inhabit it.
Absolutely. Giving us the
Right.
blueprint in social media for us to accept certain types of new physiology, them, they, Zerzy, all kinds of new wording to accept a new kind of, geoengineered life form or
Yeah.
a life form that was being introduced here, like the other life forms that came previously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when we looking at the totality of the picture and we come to now, what's taking place now, based on what historically has happened, they days is up. That's it for them. It's over. Now we seeing the rollout of the ones that's sending these orbs ahead of them before they get here. The government desensitizing the people with drones the size
Absolutely.
of SUVs.
Absolutely.
And you know this because Donald J came on and said they know exactly where they at. If they came out of a garage, the military can go
They
right in
know
that
where they,
garage.
absolutely.
They know where they came from. They know where they went. That's the drones, but that ain't the orbs.
But you notice that they purposefully created a new term called UAP to take away
Mm-hmm.
the verbiage UFOs, which is classic. And they
Mm-hmm.
make sure they keep saying drones, but they don't tell you this these light ships. And some are diamond-esque type of macabre looking ships. They don't speak about that and they don't tell you why there's plasma shooting at the orbs, shooting some of them down. I mean, not the orbs, shooting at the drones, shot a few of them down. Um,
So when you get to the biblical description of the angel and they draw the picture and they give you the Dyson sphere,
mhm,
that's what the orbs are. Those are
absolutely.
satellites. Those are reconnaissance satellites that is sent ahead of the fleets before they get to their destination. Wherever they
Yeah,
coming from, if
they're
they coming
scouts.
from the inner earth, if
Yep.
they coming from a parallel dimension, if they coming from outer space, if they coming from a different time zone, wherever they coming from, they send those orbs, those Dyson spheres, it's satellites. And all of those, what appear to be eyes, are just cameras. They give them a 360-degree panoramic view of the layout before they come.
Mhm,
So when they come, they know where they're going. They know what they're
absolutely.
about to enter into before they get there.
Mhm. And the orbs are actually placed on, we've noticed and documented, they're over every landmass, and it's usually one, if it's a smaller landmass, so you'll see the orbs positioned there. So they're definitely documenting the area and getting a scope of what's going on. And the other places like Jersey, maybe where there's more nuclear facilities and more, that's where the drones are erecting in more masses to try to accommodate and try to, try to cloak the others that are here. Yeah.
So let me point out something since you brought up New Jersey.
Yeah.
Noble Drew Ali went into what's called the Moorish Zionist Jewish temple and discovered the magic that they was using to subjugate the people of the land.
Mm.
He came out of, this was in New Jersey, in Newark, New Jersey. He came out of the Moorish Zionist temple and established the Moorish Science Temple, right? Because it was a direct confrontation to the Moorish Zionist Jews, right? These Moorish Zionist Jews is niggas.
which is Sephardic, just FYI. They usually sometimes they call themselves Sephardic.
The Sephardi are the Spanish converts,
Mhm.
pale skinned Spanish converts.
Mhm.
The original more Zionist Jews was nappy head niggas,
Mhm.
right? And they live across the land in gated communities, and they talk about us like a dog, metaphorically speaking.
Mhm.
And they don't like us. And the only time we gonna see them is when it's time for them to send in what we call operatives to interfere with some progressive movement we have.
That's right. And they start working side by side, looking like you, but they're not you.
And they maybe their famous thing is kill Whitey, but we don't know he Whitey until we read Black's Law 5th edition, meaning a white free white person in law. It mean a Moor.
Mm.
So when you read Secret Relation Between Blacks and Jews, printed by the Nation of Islam Research Team, you will realize some of the places where these Jews is wasn't no pale faces into the 1900s.
Nope. They were all brown.
Then, gotta show you another one.
Yeah.
This book right here is called Empty Wagon.
Empty wagon.
This is a pale-faced Jewish rabbi. The subtitles say Zionist journey from identity crisis to identity theft.
Ooh, 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 ooh.
The book is about
What year was it written? What year was it written? Can you see?
let me look.
I'm sorry, because I went to school with Dr. Jeffrey, so I wanted to know
You Dr. Jeffries.
which is friends with Malachi Z. York. Yeah. He was my professor in college.
You mean Dr. Leonard Jeffries?
Yes. Isn't it synchronistic?
Yeah, that's something else. You know, Dr. Bean wrote a book called We the Black Jacobins.
Yes, yes, yes.
Right.
If
So
you can find the data, don't worry. I'm going to ask you later because I want to find out if it syncs with something else. Yeah.
it's right here in the front of the book. (2020), 2018, 2020 was the revise.
Okay. Okay.
Anyway, so when you see in New Jersey being the first place where these drones are sighted.
Hold on, before you go on, if we're going to reference something that some people got to remember is that in one of the old movies, it was Twilight Zone, or was it The Outer Limits? It was Twilight Zone. It's called To Serve Man. The first place they show in the movie is New Jersey, Newark, New Jersey. And just another reference, there's a gentleman I knew who was the father of my friend who saw their first UFO over Newark, New Jersey, and a giant hiding behind a window, behind a building. So Newark, New Jersey is a hub for something else.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So
Go
the
ahead.
connection to Newark is the side of Shakur.
Mm.
That's why she in exile.
Go. Okay. Wait.
Okay, so
Yeah,
New
you got me
Jersey,
excited here. Okay. Yeah.
okay, she's the queen of New Jersey. That's her territory. That's her land.
Oh,
So she's in exile. So they
yes.
running amok and disregarding her as if she's irrelevant to the land. She won with the land. She from the land,
That's right.
right?
New Jersey.
So we all screaming hands off Assad. So the
Yeah.
first thing I want to tell Trump, tell that governor to give her a full pardon.
Well, remember Trump also, and I don't know if you remember, because we know that she was last seen, obviously she had extradition, she had political asylum in Cuba. From what I understand, and she's been relocated somewhere else with the protection of perhaps Russia. But what I'm concerned with is that when Trump came back into power in 2016, I don't know which Trump, his first thing was to put a bounty on her head again. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, well, that was to bring attention to Benghazi.
Okay, okay.
Right. Now, when you go look at the images of Benghazi and you want to know where Tupac is, then go look at the images and come back and we had this discussion
Oh,
again.
oh, okay. Oh,
They so you got this brother with these Arabs shooting up the embassy in Benghazi. They can't tell you that they know Tupac ain't dead.
mm.
That changes the whole liberation dynamic of our people. If Angel Bay is 44 red, he's the one supposed to be out here kicking these in their ass.
Mm-hmm.
His tribe was busted up by COINTELPRO
Mm.
before he was able to realize the totality of his mission. They had to get him where they can put him under and make him a bond servant. They can put him under their jurisdictional authority.
And I'm sure they found out who he was and whatever his mission
They
was.
knew who he was from birth.
Yeah, Project Looking Glass, they can see the variations within who comes in. They know, kind of like Terminator.
They've
Terminator
been
had the
following me my
assignment.
whole life.
I know that's right. I know.
I've been knowing they following me because I done had times where I be walking down the street 3 a.m. in the middle of the night in Chicago and don't nobody know me in this area. And then I feel like somebody watching me. Who the hell is this watching me? Right. And I'm looking around and I don't see nobody, but I know they there.
They are. They
I can
are.
feel it.
Yeah.
It's a book called The Sense of Being Stared At.
You can feel
Yeah.
the dagger of sight on someone, whether they're cloaking themselves, putting in invisibility. They watch certain people, and I know, I know the legitimacy of someone by the attacks they get. Because
Yeah.
I'm the queen of attacks on YouTube. I love the attention. Let me give a shout out to YouTube for being the biggest hater. I mean, they attack me for nothing. I could say the word clone, I get attacked. But usually by default, because one can recognize real by the amount of attention and also attack and the types of attack. So when they try to take away from people looking at someone who can give them value and just lead them like a Moses into an awareness, they'll attack them personally. Welcome to the world of social media. Okay.
And that's also part of the verification of your mission. If you don't have no opposition,
Oh, you're not worthy of
you're not doing something right.
It's true. It's true.
But
Yeah.
but when they coming at your head like they came for you, like they came for me,
Yeah.
and a whole lot of others, you doing something right because they want you to stop doing it at all costs, and they going to pull out all the stops to shut you up.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
They can't figure out because I know they MO. So I was able to systematically use social media and don't form in congregated groups.
Listen, you don't have to. Yes, I know. Because
I
what
know
they'll
they,
do is they'll
I
send.
know they MO, I know they pattern, I know how they operate, and I've been staying just outside of they operating procedure, they SOP, right? So I already know how they move. So I'm moving right on about their way. I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing because we about to take this SOB over, and ain't nothing they can do about it.
Well, now there's targets on everybody's back who was trying to cause any sort of like ripple, because that's just basically going to ripple back into their direction. If you didn't take us out already, you're gonna have a problem.
Yeah. So now all of the ones that was attacked and the people that was doing the attacking, the ones that was the frauds, they gonna be drug out. Yeah. All we got to do is sit back and watch. We don't got to do nothing. We the chosen ones. And the reason why we chosen, because we chose ourselves to accept our path to do our work. Don't nobody want to do this shit for real.
Absolutely not.
This is look, it's when you talking to people, right? I tell them I can explain it to you, but I can't understand it for you. Right? I can show it to you, but I can't give you the realization. And I'm fully aware that smart people sound totally bat fucking insane to a dummy. Right? So now we looking at so where you fit in the category. Is you the one I explained it to that want me to understand it for you? I can't understand it for you. right? Or is you the one that think I'm insane because you a total idiot? Yeah.
I hope someone, yeah. Did you all receive? Okay.
So when we take these responsibilities on, people think this come with glamour like a celebrity. It don't come with none of that.
Not, no. It
This
comes
is
with a
the
lot of it comes with a lot of paranoia, a lot of trying to evade things, trying to, relegate your life around certain types of, what you perceive challenges or attacks.
yeah, like you might be looking at somebody pointing a gun at you, and you tell somebody next to you, he pointing a gun at me. You know, why you think somebody? You always think somebody trying to do something to you.
Exactly.
I'm looking at him pointing this gun at me. No, you
They have
just
no concept.
paranoid. I'm not paranoid. I know what I'm looking at.
Yeah. And it's the same as someone who sees a craft and one who doesn't. If your perception
Mm.
of reality is higher at a certain grade or hierarchy and someone doesn't see it, they will think that you're insane for seeing something that they're unable to see.
Or if they're gonna come up with a cognitively dissonant
Oh, it's fine.
explanation to
Yeah.
try to explain it away because they
It's your
can't explain it.
contacts. Your contacts are dirty. You fell asleep. You were partying last night. You were drinking some. So now your contacts are foggy. That's why you're seeing the glitz and glitter in the sky. And even, or, you're suffering from like, depression. You broke up with your boyfriend and now you just, delirious. One or the other. Yeah.
That's what Prince say. Let's go crazy. Let's get wild. He had a song called Delirious too.
That's right. That's right.
And
Prince
he
was,
wasn't just talking.
well, Prince did, I personally think he didn't transition because he was doing telepathic messages years ago, but later on there was someone
He got a
connected.
secondary mansion higher up in the woods in Minnesota, and he ain't coming out to this over with.
Woo! I know that's right. And he
Michael
said some
Jackson
people,
got Michael Jackson originally he had out in the Philippines, and then he bought a mansion in I think it was Montana in the woods. And then
amen.
they tried to send some investigators in there, and his security, he had like a military style security or private military.
Yeah.
And they told him, you're not getting in. And the feds were like, oh, we coming in. And they was like, okay. And they looked up and there was soldiers everywhere. They was like, you know what? We're going to take a rain check on that because we remember
Want
Ruby
a problem?
Ridge.
Yeah.
We remember Ruby Ridge and they was not as armed as you guys. So
Mm,
they don't want, they know what's going on.
they do. They do.
They
And they
know what's
gave us
going on.
enough. They never, and also they gave us the tools and a lot of the information via their albums, especially the last ones. So if you listen to the last albums with the Rainbow Children, with Prince's last album, he gives a lot of messages, subliminal messages that he gave us to be able to maneuver through these times. Same with Michael Jackson. So big up to Prince, formerly known as Prince, and Michael Jackson. We can't play his
I'm
songs
saying
because
they don't
they
really
blocked
care
us.
about us. Dude, you know that's Mississippian culture to put codes in music, to tell messages in music.
I love it. I love it. It's the
Tupac
best
got
song.
a song called White Man's World, and he say, they tell me it's the white man I should fear, but it's my own kind doing all the killing here.
Hello. It's the
He
black face.
telling you right there, they look like us, but they not us.
I agree. I
And
agree.
if anybody didn't get it, to DMX came right behind him and say they don't know who we be. But that don't mean we don't know each other.
Yeah.
Like
But
I don't know
that's
ODB is Chief
that's why
Crazy Horse.
that's why they lump us all together and people don't realize it's purposefully done so they can get the agents in there and they can place them strategically around you. They'll sound like you, drink like you. One thing I know, this is what I found out, is because a lot of them aren't rhythmic. That's another something I found out. They're not rhythmic because they're not connected to this terrain. So a lot of them are just non-harmonic. So they'll do things that's off, like things that are not, like you'll look at them, it's like the movement will be off, the way they drink is to be off, the way that they say things or think is off. It's not harmonic. So, because I don't know if they're geoengineered, they could be cloned, they could be syntheticas, or they could just be part of that non-harmonic clan that doesn't come from here.
So the ones that like I got a friend living in Grand Rapids right now named Fadia. Fadia is from the Mindi tribe in Africa.
Mm,
When I was locked up, like I know all of the guys that's around me is from here. I can tell by, the energy, demeanor, everything. Fadia come walking out the building because they wanted me to meet him. As soon as he came out, I said, "Who that nigga? He ain't one of us."
you could
The
feel it.
whole yard stopped and looked at me like, "How you know he ain't from over here?"
You
I
could
said,
feel
"That
it.
nigga not from America. I don't know where he from, but he ain't
Yeah,
from here."
yeah,
So they called him over there. He sat down at the table. We started talking. I said, "Man, where you from? You ain't one of us. You ain't from over here." He
yeah,
said, "No, I'm from Africa."
yeah.
I said, "You don't talk like no African." He said, "That's because I was raised over here, but my mom and my daddy's from Africa. I'm Mindy from Africa, from Sierra Leone."
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there looking at him like, they just shocked that off sight, I knew he wasn't one of us.
Well, you could pick up on the frequency and the vibration's totally different.
Yeah. And he
Yeah,
kind of turned out to be one of my best friends too.
good. Yeah.
But
But it's good
and
to
we talked
recognize.
a lot because he
Yeah.
was curious about how I was able to tell that he wasn't from over here.
Hmm.
Because I was the first person that had said it to him. I said, "Man, I know my people wherever I see them at, and I know who ain't one of us."
It's true. It's true.
Right?
Not everybody, well, they could, maybe they don't say it, but some people may be muted and can't necessarily register it. But if you're with a certain state of awareness, you'll always know when people outside, even if they look like you know they're not connected to you genetically. And I always say to brown people who are suffering from Stockholm syndrome of thinking all brown people are them, I say, does a German man think he's a Dutchman? Does a Dutchman think he's a Frenchman? Does a Frenchman think he's from England? Does an Englishman think he's from Norway? No, they're very different. They have different, even if they look alike, they have different genetic coding, different imprints, different vibrations, different cultural bases. The only people that they lump together as brown people, and that's purposefully done so that we keep people in our mix that are our enemies, and that we're never able to really register when an enemy's close to us because they always make them look like us. I always tell people on the line, the biggest and most baddest wolves in my life have always been women of color who look like me. They don't send other women to attack me. They'll only send women that look and have more of a similar phenotype so that I'll be sublimed with being able to register if they're my enemy or not.
Yeah. And occasionally they throw one in that looking like a man. She looking like a man. But anyway, somebody put in the comments, all kinfolk ain't skinfolk. All skinfolk ain't kinfolk. Our ancestors was telling us that for a reason.
Yeah, yeah.
That's not just a catchphrase.
No, no.
Because the George Washington challenge said at the end of 200 years, we not going to know them from us and us from them. What side of the water we from and what side of the water they from.
Absolutely. That's why it's good to
Right?
know vibration. Vibration, your kin, your vibratory family is your kin. You have to recognize that. And if you aren't able to do it because you're not harmonic enough, you're doing, if you always have disharmony around you, it's going to be hard to recognize an enemy because you're going to be used to that disharmony. So it's always
Mm-hmm.
good to have, even if it's one or two people, you don't need to have a posse of people. You just have to have one or two people that are
But
kin
we
energetically.
culturally, we love to be around each other
We
culturally.
do, we do, we
But
do.
when this war was waged against us, it made us hate us.
Hmm. Yeah,
And as Bobby Hemming would say, niggas and flies, niggas and flies. Flies eat shit, niggas tell lies. The more I'm around niggas, the more I like flies. But this goes back to um, what's really going on in America that most people can't see with the naked eye. You got two groups of melanated beings fighting for America, the ones that's from here and the ones that ain't from here.
that's right. If you
All of
notice,
these
oh yeah,
high-ranking pink folks is aware of the conflict, so
they
they
do.
try to steer clear using racism as they shield
It's a
to keep
cloak.
the that keeps the two different groups that's at war fighting each other in their own community, right? And then they get to reap what they call white privilege of staying out of the conflict.
Yeah.
But white privilege don't answer for poor white trash.
Oh no,
White privilege don't answer for trailer park trash.
there's no such thing as white privilege. That's just a
That's
concept.
Right. But see, that's the ideology used to make us think that we at war with pale faces.
Hmm.
But the white man is not pale skinned.
No, no, it's bait and switch.
Right. But they
Yes.
used to use the pale skins to block the institutions: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, and war,
Mm.
and health, and to dominate us in sex. So by them using that carrot on the stick, we always thinking we fighting pale faces, but it's this nappy head,
It's the brown devils. It's the black
extra
devils.
dark, yep, black
Yeah.
devil standing here telling me, if I was you, I wouldn't let him talk to you like that. You
Hmm.
should shoot him.
Hmm. Hmm.
Why should I shoot him when I can just beat his ass?
Yeah. And then walk away and just
Yeah, and then
you
if he
know what
don't
I
like it, we
mean?
could fight tomorrow and the next day and the next day. That's how the tribes are.
Yeah.
The warring tribes, we used to box each other. That was how we established our hierarchy amongst our peers,
Hmm.
by being able to box. They
My
call
ex,
it knocking.
yeah, because my ex from the Bronx, they used to do body. First time I seen it, when you watching males in their true primal state, you'd be like,
Mhm.
oh, and they just punch it and they friends. It's like body, and you just have to stay there and grunt. And that was part of just like almost like a call to like
Initiation.
virility. Yeah, yeah. So,
Yep.
and I seen that. There was no fighting, nobody's mad. They drink at 40s afterwards, so everybody's cool.
I
But
grew up body punching.
mhm.
We used to body punching. We used to grow up body punching. My father called it knocking because they used to do it when they was teenagers. But what we do is we get our skills up by punching, but no face.
Just
But
body.
everything else is open season:
Yeah.
ribs, shoulders, arms,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
back.
Yeah.
All that's open game. Just you can't hit it from the neck up. But by the time you get done getting in a few of them, you gonna know how to handle yourself,
It's building
right?
resiliency, right?
Yeah.
Resiliency.
And it's teaching you the skills to defense.
Hmm.
It's like sparring in the boxing ring. Only you don't got a ring and you don't got no gloves.
That's right. Yeah.
It's same thing.
Yeah.
They do it in all combat sports. They have sparring sessions.
I see
You
that.
can't develop your skills without a valid competitor on the other side of you pushing you to be better,
That's right. But now,
exploiting your weaknesses so you can become stronger in the weak places.
but now you have young men who are scared to be hit and mothers who are saying, don't touch my son, don't hurt him. You know what I mean? I don't want him hanging out at your house because he keeps coming back and he's got like bruises. So now we've stopped that kind of primal kind of, I think it's, like training. And it's
It is.
males and females training is different and at different stages of life. And I think
Mhm.
our young men, the training that was done from pubescence to puberty has been stunted based on all the social cueing, feminization of the boys, lowering their resiliency to pain, also, you know what I mean? So it's not the same.
In Cali, they say run that fade.
That's right. That's
Run
right.
that fade. You got a problem with me, run that fade.
Yeah.
Right? Look, the third chief of the big three was Larry Hoover. He is the one who's supposed
That's
to
right.
give the reports. They call him the chairman of the board for a reason. His job is to report to the public. He's supposed to be reading like the State of the State address that the president give
Hmm.
for the tribes. That's Larry Hoover function. That's why he locked up. He ain't locked up for nothing he did. He locked up because
Status,
COINTELPRO knew who he
because of the
was.
status, yeah. And also, from what I heard, and I want to verify this with you, I heard that it's kind of like there was a scene in Malcolm X's movie where they were standing outside the police. I think you know what I'm talking about, the police precinct, and Malcolm X was standing, and they just stand uniformed behind them, right? And yep, and when it was time, he told them to disperse, and they just walked away. And the lunar man was like, no black man should have that much
Not that
power.
much
From what I
power.
understand, that Larry Hoover was a reference to who he was, as a leader and as someone who had the ability to command, his tribal base, but not even that, just multiple different people would have his respect and would come in his command. Because I heard they isolate him because they think he has some form of telepathy that controls the other men. Because every time they let him out amongst the main population, the men of all backgrounds, doesn't matter what it is, literally just gravitate towards him and bend under, not bend, but yield under his command. Is that true?
Well, you got to go back to 1974 when the great LSD treaty was formed, and the Brothers of the Struggle was born.
Okay.
Larry was good friends with Angel Bay Jeff Ford. They've been friends since teenagers.
Okay.
The government keep telling us they sworn enemies. And Larry inherited his spot as Solomon from King David, king of all kings.
Mm.
The CIA had him murdered through COINTELPRO. And so now they worry now is that one of their children is going to come up and take up that banner.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. So they worried about Prince Wakita. They worried about the older Larry Jr., they worried about little Larry, and they worried about King David's son being able to command that influence. But they reserved in commanding that influence because the threat that we under, they can't really organize the younger men like their fathers did because the government involvement in our communities. Like, let's take King Low from the Four Corner Hustlers. The exact same MO they used to indict and give Jeff Ford all that time, they used the same MO on King Zoe. They sent in a guy to sell him a rocket launcher because he was beefing with the police. The police has been our enemy the whole time.
They were that their main goal was to, after the so-called emancipation of slaveries, were just basically to be groundsmen to control the Negroes walking around to never make them feel safe or secure.
Right. So they started off as slave patrols.
Exactly.
So what do you do with all of these jobs of slave patrol if you change the system?
Mm.
Remember, they follow something called uniform commercial system. The appearance of legitimacy comes from the wearing of a uniform. Right? Mm-hmm. So now you got the Postmaster General in a uniform, and all of his cronies called mailmen is wearing uniforms. Mm-hmm. The gas guy coming to check your gas meter wearing a uniform. Everybody wearing a uniform. Mm-hmm. It's to give the illusion of legitimacy straight out of the book The Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli. You put the shiny objects on their shirt to make them look more important than the rest of the people.
Amplify their purpose and visual.
Right.
Yeah.
Now that gives rise to the psychological study on the obedience to authority. That's a book reference, by the way, called Obedience to Authority. And they found that people would do some stuff under the order of authority that they wouldn't do of their own accord.
That's right.
Including murder. Now they got what they call Manchurian candidates, where they bypass the conscious mind using hypnosis based off Dr. Estabrook's hypnosis programs, right, to activate a sleeper to commit a crime, and the government hands look clean. Those are called cat's paws. 48 laws of power. Always use a cat's paw.
That's right.
Right. The reason being is you don't want us to know that you the enemy. You want us to keep thinking we the enemy. So they villainized the term for tribe as gang. Mm-hmm. Gang mean tribe. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Then they send infiltrators in that look like us, but not us.
Absolutely.
To start wars with us, among us, so we fighting each other as warring tribes, and we can't never establish peace because we don't see the enemy in the midst because he look like us.
Yeah, they create coups in every single nation. And they did it, the greatest coup, the greatest wonderment of MK Ultra, well, of Manchurian incidents was 9/11 to perpetrate a whole fraud of a narrative based on Arabs are the enemies, the Middle East is enemies, to be able to have an excuse to go and clear what Israel couldn't do on its own. So it used 9/11 as a front in order to have the excuse and the validation and the support of the American people to go into the Middle East and do the clearing like they're doing today.
So the 9/11 thing was the brainchild of George Herbert Walker Bush,
Mm,
king of the skull and bones community. He was the one who he controls Barack Obama, Bill and Hillary Clinton. He controlled his sons, obviously. He controlled the dude that shot Ronald Reagan.
hmm.
Yeah, that's his illegitimate son too.
Oh,
Put his picture next to Jeb when he was young, and you'll see what I'm talking about. You can't mistake them for nothing but brothers.
holy cow. I'm gonna do that.
The reason why they wanted to get rid of Reagan is because the things that George wanted to do, Reagan wasn't with that,
Wasn't on it. Yeah, yeah.
right? He was really in his interest was to really try to clean up the government and to balance the books. But when he got there, most people don't remember when Reagan was running. It was originally supposed to be a governor out of Michigan as his running mate named Monahan. But on the day at the Republican convention that he announced it, out walks George Herbert Walker Bush.
Isn't it
He
kind of
got
like
his
the
power from the assassination of JFK. He oversaw that as a CIA operation.
absolute because JFK was going to talk about the power that the what are they called? The APAC. Well, they weren't called APAC at the time, that there was, money and things being uh facilitated and foreign powers having more control and influence over political parties. So Kennedy was going to cut off some of those lines and separate the foreign entities, what we call Israel today, from having any influence over American politics. And lo and behold, he just happens to be assassinated. And the person who replaced him was fully in line with everything that Israel would like and had instituted to make sure that they had a hand in politics. And not only that, each person in a political political position had an APAC representative always come and greet them once they come into that position.
So because he was Catholic, the Pope sent him Jesuits. When the Jesuits left, he came out and he did a speech called Separation of Church and State.
Mm.
When he got, I think that was after he gave the one about the secret society taking over the government. Right. Both of these speeches is available on YouTube. Now, there was more than one reason JFK got assassinated. One is silver certificate notes. He had reissued the silver certificates trying to do away with the Federal Reserve banking system and reinstitute the United States Treasury.
Because each of the dollars back in the days, for those who don't know, used to say it was worth a silver coin. And that was wiped away. All those bills were taken out and phased out.
Okay, yeah. That was one set of enemies is international bankers. If you want to know how they cut, get a book called Confessions of an Economic Hitman.
Yes, yes. Which should be in everybody's archives. Yes.
Right. Okay, now the next thing is the mafia, who his father was a Irish mafia man, had made all these deals with the Italian mafia and the Jewish mafia that they helped him get his son in office, that he would grant them favors. Mm-hmm. When John got in office, he said, I'm not granting them no favors. They crooks. Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, Bobby, get them. So now he didn't sign the death certificate of him and his brother unknowingly at this time.
Absolutely.
Okay,
question.
now.
Question.
Yeah, go ahead.
What is your perception? Because there's a whole group of people online saying that Kennedy never died. Again, it was kind of like a fake death. But I think Kennedy, the original Kennedy, died, was assassinated. But his son, the one who died on the plane, that was a fake
Yeah, that
death.
was a whole psyop there.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
But
Okay.
the JFK had a look-alike. He had a double. He actually took a picture at the White House with his double.
Oh.
And you
I
can
think that was
actually,
about, yes, 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 yes. I
okay.
think I remember. Yeah.
So the reason why people think he's still alive is because just like you got people that's against us, you got people that's with us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they believe that they allowed that process to play out in order for us to be able to redeem later, right? So what happened after the assassination of JFK? LBJ got in and he signed the Indian Civil Rights Act.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right now, they know that over time they can diminish the power of the Indian Civil Rights Act and what they produced out of that called affirmative action by declaring other people as what they call minority groups.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Taking
it
them further and
originally
further from
was
their indigenous
right.
patent.
So when it was for the Indians, we thought it was black civil rights. It was the Indian Civil Rights Bill.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, now the first people that came in using those that wasn't us was Hispanics. After the Hispanics came the Asians.
Yeah.
After the Asians came the Arabs.
And wait, let me just stop you there because people need to realize that most universities, even though they say that Black people take up most of the affirmative action, in all of the colleges, most of the people taking up a lot of the scholarships for minorities, majority of them who benefit from it are Asians, Arabs, and Hispanics. Just
Mhm.
FYI. If you look at the number of brown people going to college based on some of the scholarships that are for minorities, it's nil compared to all others. That's why when they just pull back from some of these scholarships and these minority laws, the Asians got hit the hardest because they were benefiting the most. Go ahead.
Then the next group in the 80s that came in was gender groups
Oh yeah, yeah.
fighting for something called gay rights.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Right? Which was part of another agenda of the pedophile priest cult that hired a group of retired military generals to write a rollout program to normalize their lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm just saying this as a statement of facts on the record. I don't care what somebody do in their bedroom as long as they ain't trying to do it in the bedroom with me.
Mm.
Oh, that ain't my business. But the reality of it is the influence on the children is the problem,
Absolutely. It
right?
was
Because
never lumped, it was never to par, that was never lumped with children initially. That's how they got it in. They slid it in under the guise it's an adult, you accept these are minorities that get
right.
subjugated to marginalization, what have you. And then they slowly brought that over and started to merge that in the educational system and start to open up clubs in high schools, LGBT clubs, and started to influence children through shows, adding that as a plausibility and a possibility that men and men should be together and children and girls and girls. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the now you watch doggone anything you watch, it's gonna be some fruity stuff going on that ain't kosher. That ain't you ain't supposed to be doing that on TV. They even got commercials now where you got men kissing each other in commercials.
Mhm,
In the 60s, they would have been executed
mhm. And
because
also,
it
yeah.
was that much intolerance for that lifestyle.
Mhm. And it's not, it was here, but now, like if you, because I'm by Mexico, Mexico now, when you watch we watch these movies and it's like telenovas, and you watch them and they never use that because a lot of the Latin culture was based on bravado, like Africa. They didn't allow that kind of like men on men, women on women. Maybe women on women just as a more seductress kind of thing, but not so much men on men. But now when you watch telenovas, you're starting to see the implementation of homosexuality, a heavy implementation of homosexual men in a lot of the shows. And it never happened before.
Yeah. And somebody said like cartoons too. The first flamboyant cartoon character came on the USA Network at night.
Mhm.
And he used to be flying around with his cape and his butt cheeks hanging out.
Yeah. But also, let's add to, when we talk about the social engineering of acceptance of that, we have to realize there's a chemicalization that came in with the crack generation, where many people don't know that women who were influenced under the influence of crack, and crack was a purposeful bioweapon that was created by the Willy Wonka system that was implemented into urban communities because they had already done experimentations with rats
LA.
and others and humans that showed that if a woman took crack even before she was impregnated, it causes it messes with the hormonal base in the pregnancy. And that's where you see a spike of all these homosexual brown men now, based on that introduction of crack cocaine, which literally switched the sexual disposition of the children chemically in womb during that time. So now we're starting to see years later what happens when you start to introduce certain chemicals. Believe me, they had already done experimentation. They had the patent for it. They knew what it did, just like the gay bombs that they were putting in Afghanistan that were changing the disposition of the men all through there. And also with my ex's father, who was from Jamaica, telling me that AIDS in itself was not originally given to Africa. It was created for the Viet Cong in Vietnam in order because they were the most just durable, crazy war people, and they needed to do something, and they implemented the AIDS virus, putting them in the prostitutes, and knowing that the men would sleep with the prostitutes and it would give them more of a leeway in there because not only were they subjected to have a bioweapon, which is AIDS, it also there was a gay bomb weapon in there too. So if you go to Vietnam now, you're going to see a lot of homosexual men as well, a spike of it, just like crack cocaine did for us in the urban communities with a lot of brown men spiking into homosexuality in our present day. Sorry.
Before it was called HIV, it was called green monkey disease in the 60s.
Good. Yes.
And
The green-eyed monkey. Yes.
it was developed as a biochemical war agent in Arizona at a World Health Organization lab. And it didn't fully mature until they hired this particular doctor who identified it and named it. And his name is Anthony Fauci. As, as for the crack, the largest, if you go back to Behold the Pale Horse, William Cooper was
Yep.
explaining how George Herbert Walker Bush was using his family's oil rigs that was not subject to search for the transport of cocaine in massive amounts into America. That was started in the early 70s. Contemporary with his transport of large quantities of cocaine in the 70s, UCLA is trying to find alternate uses for the substance, and that's where they developed what's called crack. Crack was developed by scientists in UCLA to make the effects or to enhance the potency of the cocaine when you smoke it in rock form.
Mm-hmm. Causing more addiction, quicker addiction to it because
Right. Now,
it was such a quick
with the
high.
culture of the 70s coming off the free love and all of that, and they was passing cocaine out in Studio 105, I think it was,
54, Studio 54.
up in New York,
Yep.
right? At
Great.
Playboy,
Great.
Playboy had clubs all over the country,
Mm-hmm.
and they had these private parties. They used to call it nose candy, and you always knew that from the flyer that it was going to be available because in there it'll say all candy available.
Mm.
So whatever floats your boat,
Mm.
right? Which takes us to the Cosby case when he was tricking with them ladies, giving them Quaaludes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We don't know in 2020, 2010s, or the 2000s period that it was standard practice of
They
people
all
back
gave
in the
Quaaludes.
70s.
Yeah, all of them. All
Now,
of them were using Quaaludes.
remember what Scarface told his wife in the movie?
What did he
Your
say?
woman's so polluted with Quaaludes, you can't even have a fucking baby.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
Okay, so this was very common. And then they had the pills was tees and blues, which is t-shirts and blue jeans, uppers and downers. That was the 70s. Crystal THC was crystal meth,
Yep.
right? All that stuff been trying to figure out how to get it into the community because we had only a fringe group of people, a small percentage that would participate in that. But when it became a money-making scheme and we was in poverty, this is where your Iran-Contra take off. Mm-hmm. Now, remember, George Bush and Ronald Reagan got in off of the freeing the hostages from Iran platform.
Right. Yes, I remember that.
Right. So, and when Ronald Reagan was the sitting duck president, the interim president waiting to take office, Iran's supposed to release a whole bunch of the hostages. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Right. Most of us don't know that them hostages was in Arizona on an army base. They wasn't in Iran at all. They never was in Iran. But they used that footage from Arizona because Arizona is desert.
So it matched the terrain that they were trying to uniformly create a smokescreen for.
So they made a deal with the Iranian government. Now, most of us don't know Saddam Hussein at this time has just been put in power a couple years before this by the CIA in Iraq. He was the #1 U.S. ally in the Middle East up until Iran-Contra blew up over here. Why? Because Iraq and Iran was in a bloody war. America began to sell guns to Iran, the enemy. America was swearing they was the enemy too. But they were selling them guns under
that's America, that's their thing. They'll call you an enemy, but they'll give you all the weapons necessary.
Right? Okay, yeah. So they armed them to fight against the Iraqis. What blew the lid off was the Iraqis was fighting with the Iranians and found that they was using American-made weapons. Okay, so what happened on the heels of that, at this time, you got two detectives. One of them was the original investigator into Biggie case, Russell Poole. And the other one, I forgot his name, but he came to a public meeting and was trying to tell them the CIA was pushing this dope into the community. Okay, now, when they start investigating to find out, because he said it publicly now, it's on the public record that the police investigator is saying that the government is selling the drugs. They discover something called the Iran-Contra affair.
That's right.
Where they was bringing the drugs into America, selling them on the streets, using the money to buy munitions from the United States military to sell to Iran. That's the only connection with Iran and Contras, because they didn't even associate. The Contras is in South America. The co-defendant, the only one that got some real time out of the whole Iran-Contra affair, he didn't get arrested immediately. He got arrested a couple years later, named Manuel Noriega from Panama.
Yes, yes.
The only trial in U.S. history that's classified as top secret.
That's right. They won't release that file. Yeah.
Because in that file, they find out that George Herbert Walker Bush, director of the CIA, was the one who put Manuel Noriega in power, and he used Nicaragua. He was using Panama to transport drugs from Nicaragua into America.
And that's why Nicaragua had that weird rogue war at one point. It was probably stimulated by like us going in there causing a little bit of, so to kind of cloak it a little bit.
Right. So they had the Sandinistas and the Contras fighting each other in Nicaragua. So while this is going on, right, the American people is watching the trial or the Senate hearings in like 87 They thought it was going to stop George Bush from getting elected president,
But it didn't.
and it didn't,
Mm.
because they've been still in the election the whole time.
Wow. I'd be shocked to know when the last time we selected a president. I mean,
The people have never selected a president, never elected
I
a
don't think
president.
so. I don't think so.
Ever since they created what's called the Electoral College,
Yeah.
we ain't had nothing to do with the president after that. Because before they can seat you as an elector, they got to know who you'll vote for.
Mm.
The popular vote has never overrode the electoral vote, but it's several occasions where the electoral vote overrode the popular vote.
Absolutely.
I think the first one was Calvin Coolidge.
Ooh.
So I tell you how far I go back.
Ooh. Okay.
So they get caught selling drugs. Now, in the United States, there's a law. It's called a culpability law. If the government solicits you to commit a crime, and you commit a crime, and the government is your co-defendant, you can't be prosecuted.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
Everybody with a dope case, their co-defendant is the U.S. government. Let that sink in. Because the government has been the ones bringing the dope in the whole time.
Distributing it, transporting it, delegating what locations to distribute it for, for whatever reasons. Yeah.
If we knew about the opium wars, right? This is what caused Mao Zedong to rise to power. The British was going into China, and they was creating what's called opium dens all over the country.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And wars broke out in the transporting of heroin or opium at that time. It wasn't heroin yet.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So then they had what's called the Opium Wars. The Opium Wars gave birth to something called the French Connection. The French Connection was transporting China white, but in the movie, I think it was cocaine. The cocaine don't come from France or Asia. It comes from South America.
Yeah.
And some of the islands produce the coca leaf too. Yeah. Right. Now, while all of this is going on, we over here oblivious. Walking around la-di-da in fool's paradise.
Because remember, most news, when you go abroad, you actually hear more news about your country than you'll hear from inside your country. So we're usually just like, we think have free speech and we can delegate and say things out loud and it's everything censored from inside and from outside.
You know, the first time I found out about 9/11, it was a show on a Canadian channel called The Fifth Estate. It's like Nightline or Dateline over here. And about 4 months after 9/11, they did a whole broadcast tracking down everything. That's the first people that I found out was telling us that the government was behind it and it wasn't no hijackers.
That's probably where we got the first leak. And then also the 7 Israelis, I'm not sure if there were 6 or 7 Israelis that were celebrating, that was on the news. And when 9/11 went down, all of the floors were Jewish companies, all got a heads up. Obviously, they got the insurance policy, the guy who bought the building right before it happened and got the insurance policy too. Okay. So that's when we found out they were probably the leak, because the person who said they saw the Israelis celebrating, that it was a woman, I think. She reported
they was
to
in
the
news.
in
the white van. They had jumped out the white van. Now remember, also white vans came into play in the transporting a massive amount of gold under the tunnels out of the World Trade Center. One of them,
when they got rid of all of they got they emptied out all of those gold places where they stored the gold.
Yep. So one of the vans, some kind of way was decommissioned in the tunnel and they left it there and it was still full of gold. I mean, they was in a hurry to get away. They didn't have time to switch the gold to the other vehicles.
Yep.
So it was also a white van.
Mm.
Then there's another lady who did the controlled demolition investigation.
Oh yeah.
And she found the boxes of explosives,
At
the
the base.
video footage of from the garage
Hmm.
from before it, like a couple of months before, they was doing midnight repairs all night long after the building was closed for like 3 or 4 months.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and
And
they
then
they
also,
she
you remember
found the
the
boxes and all that. The
oh,
boxes.
remember the accounts that the firemen, the policemen, the New York City cops, before they totally swept the internet, took it offline, the first thing they said is they heard the booms, the explosions at the base of the building. And
Mhm,
these men would know because there's no way that a plane would hit the top of a building and it could collapse an entire building, especially with all that steel. It would have to collapse from the base, like any other demolition in New York City.
mhm. Well, here go the problem too with the plane causing the crash, because the way that the we don't know about the Empire State Building got struck by a Cessna back in like the 20s or the 30s. This was before the World Trade Center was built.
Mm.
So because of that, the World Trade Center was built to withstand a direct hit from an airplane on purpose. That's why it had an exoskeleton and then it had an internal tube,
Mhm.
right? So if a plane did run into the building, then they say, well, the fuel from the plane melted the
Yeah,
columns. No, it didn't.
no,
The
no,
fuel, jet fuel doesn't burn hot enough to melt steel,
yeah. And when you
but
see the
thermite do.
yeah, exactly. But when you see how it fell, you've seen any demolition. I'm a New York girl. You've seen any demolition. You kind of sometimes you get to watch it. The way that the building fell was exactly how a full demolition happens. It nothing was non-uniform. It wasn't as ununiformed. Everything was uniformed in how it fell with any other demolition. Yeah.
You know, the first thing when I was watching it when it was happening, I was like, it don't seem like the building should have fell like that. It seemed like the top should have tipped
It
over.
should have tipped over. It would have cracked over if it was normal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then the next thing that got my attention that made me say, what the was building number 7 that no plane hit
And it collapsed.
and
And
it
I
collapsed.
worked down there. So yeah, yeah, yeah. And what's crazy is because you use the propaganda, because remember they build the narrative, they control the narrative. So it's all mind control programming. They perpetually say something over and over again, show you several scenes, tell you what you need to think, which remember Richard Pryor said when he was cheating on his girl, he was like, you gonna believe me or you gonna believe your lying eyes? Okay. So people were seeing things that they knew very well weren't exactly how they were describing and constantly repetitiously saying. And then they also used trauma programming because people were so traumatized. New Yorkers didn't know what they were seeing. A lot of family members died. People did not come home. The police officers were in shock. You use the trauma. Trauma is wonderful at compartmentalizing the brain. And that's how you use the MK Ultra is you create a trauma response that compartmentalizes the brain and it takes away from all rationality. So anything that you're programming the brain with is going to be nicely nestled into the part of your brain that accepts it as truth. So
Yeah.
they did a wonderful thing. And meanwhile, no one used the grants, and we don't want to even talk about the Pentagon, which was never hit by a plane. And at the time, I had a friend who was working for the Navy and showed me the image of a missile launcher in the lawn turning directly at the Pentagon, one of their own missile launchers who hit it. And that's why you never saw an image of a plane on a Pentagon. They never showed it to you because they couldn't show it to you.
They got a sister that was working in the Pentagon. She say when they hit, she seen no evidence of a plane nowhere, no luggage, nothing. But they also, it's a video from a field across from the Pentagon that shows the missiles. It was what they call a Scud missile,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and that's what hit the Pentagon,
Yeah. I saw the
right?
video, but it was taken away and he got in trouble because we weren't supposed to see that. We were just sitting in the car chilling and I saw the image and the Navy guys already saw it. And remember at the time it wasn't all stories weren't together. So no one knew what not to say. Nothing was being held and swept away. So a lot of different stories got out just initially until later
Hmm.
when they kind of cleansed the entire internet.
So they gave us what they call 3 knocks to the takeover,
Mm.
right? The first knock was the World Trade Center bombing in 91. We keep forgetting that.
Yep. I, we lived there, so
We
yeah.
used to we used to be running around talking about blow up like the World Trade.
That's true. Yeah, and a lot of hip hop references to it. Yeah.
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 Then the second knock came with the federal building in Oklahoma City,
What year was that?
95.
There's something in between that happened. I forgot the year, but my mother, it was in the 60s, and I don't think people know about it because my mom was working in the Chase building and there was an explosion. It's not on record. People find it after the fact. They blew up part of the Chase building in New York City. I think it was part of their kind of checking to see, testing these areas because she
It's totally
experienced,
possible.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
totally possible.
yeah.
But the 3 knocks, they like 5 years apart, roughly.
Oh, yeah, that's pattern.
Right.
Yeah.
So the last one was 9/11.
Mm.
So you went World Trade Center, Federal Building, World Trade Center.
Mm.
3 knocks. We coming to take over. Who is we? Skull and Bones.
Yeah. Jesuits, Zionists, they're all in that hub, right?
Then they are all of the secret societies. Is the only secret is that you don't know what they doing while they doing it until it's too late for you to do anything about it.
Because they're contracting all these different subsidiaries. So you think it's this group, when meanwhile it's something else totally different. And the hub is controlling everything from the top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when we look at um, CIA sponsored assassinations, you got Patrice Lumumba, you got Maurice Bishop,
Mm.
you got Stephen Biko, you got Laurent Kabila, you got Malcolm, you got DePinto. It's a long list of prominent figures the U.S. government assassinated. In Mexico, you had Emilio Zapata.
That's right.
Um, and I forgot the guy name in Puerto Rico, but they locked him up and tortured him to death. Then you got the guy out of Florida, Leonard Peltier. He's locked up
So
for,
can I ask you, so it's all in that 15-year period, right? So it's all in this 15-year period. It was a sweep.
well, this was over the last, since like 60.
Okay, okay, okay.
Right. So they run in what they call the long operation, and then you have what's called short-term operations. Right. Short-term operations would be like crack. Crack was a short-term operation. It was not supposed to last
The
longer
long-term
than
effects.
right.
Okay.
They do have long-term effects, but like right now, what they calling crack in the streets, that's garbage.
Yeah, no, no.
No
They
drug dealer from the 80s would touch that stuff.
no, no.
Right.
They got
Now
pink cocaine.
they come out with the new one now. You got
Was
the
it
pink cocaine
pink
and
cocaine? Yeah,
yeah.
in form, slick, P. Diddy style.
So and then you have the fentanyl.
You're right. You're right. Yeah. That took
They
over
keep
that sector. Yeah,
they keep blaming the people in Mexico for fentanyl.
absolutely.
They're making it in the laboratories right over there in California.
They got fentanyl labs all in the Midwest. That's why they got a fentanyl problem, and half the Midwest is high, like zombified. Go look at the Midwest, and they have to import brown people to create a narrative as the brown people that's high. And but what they're doing is they importing. They don't tell you, oh, we're taking all the homeless from New York and so on because we just can't. We got to redistribute it. No, you're doing it because they don't want you to know all the lunars, the white people that are suffering under their governmental institution of fentanyl, all in those areas.
The government was doing it the whole time. Why would they stop? They make too much money
That's true.
and they can control too many people.
Hmm.
They more concerned with the control than they are with the money.
Absolutely.
Because from the control, it's going to increase the dividends. Everything that we did naturally, they villainize and criminalize.
Hmm.
And if they can't villainize it and criminalize it, they demoralize it,
Yes.
right? we had the chiefs would have multiple wives when they came over here. Right now, it's against the law, and it's called bigamy.
Oh, is it bigamy? Is that what it's called? Yeah.
That's what it's called.
But they're doing it all in the Midwest. They're
Yeah,
marrying, they're marrying the children, the sisters, but they don't call them polygamists, right? They don't call them that.
you call them bigamous. And
No.
then not only that, the government, when you get a marriage license, the government is the go-between between the two parties. It's a corporate merger. It don't have nothing to do with people.
Hmm.
A marriage license have nothing to do with a marital union of two people.
Well, marriage for a woman is a form of indentured slavery under the terms of this new
Well,
system.
and that's how we view relationships from the terms of a slave driving mentality. I own
Absolutely.
you now.
Yeah, sure.
That's not what it was before they came. A
No.
relationship was a partnership. It was the unification of two clans.
Yeah.
They normally was arranged.
Yes. Yes.
And if they got along, they normally got along because you didn't have all of the outside influences
And you had support systems. The
and you
tribal
had a
base was a
support
support
system.
system for
Yeah.
women. Women weren't isolated and made to feel like they were engaged in, silent wars in the home. There was a support system, and there was support for the males and for the females. So whenever
Yeah.
you have that, there's no sense of subjugation. You don't feel as marginalized or under like tyranny. Yeah.
Go back to Betty Wright. Don't blame Mr. Charlie. Mr. Charlie is just a man and he's doing the best he can. Right? So she telling you the tribal tradition and the women used to go to the lady that she thinks she having marital problem. Girl, that ain't no problem.
Yeah.
Right? That the only reason you making it a problem is because that right in your ear right there, she the one need to go, not your husband. She's single with 15 babies by 7 baby daddies. And she telling you how to run your marriage.
Hmm.
And she ain't never been married.
Well, those are usually the ones who are trying to they're trying to destroy what they don't
Girl, if
have.
I was you, I would take that off of that. I wouldn't let no man talk to me like, nah, girl. Go sit your ass down somewhere and get a life.
Uh,
But like on a personal level, none of that stuff move me. Right? I believe in family and tribe and building up the strength of the tribe by building the intelligence of the tribe's members.
Well, I grew up with that. I grew up with those values from my father and mother and the people we came from.
Mm-hmm.
So we know that having a tribal base and having a support system, it's just it's cohesive, you know what I mean? And there weren't, all the women's libs and women liberation really wasn't something that was a part it was created by the same diabolical Jesuits slash, Mason. It's from their world that they created the whole women's lib, which really caused more infection within the relationship and dynamics between melanated women and men, because that wasn't
So
something we really had an issue
women's
with.
liberation is the flip side of the patriarchal coin.
Mm.
Most of us are unaware that most of the women's liberation literature from the 1900s before 1950 was written by men dressed in dresses.
Oh, just like the one on the stages. Yeah.
That's why it don't work
Mm.
for women. It don't work for women.
It's like the brassiere that was created by a man. It
Mm.
just doesn't work.
Let's try to cover up the breasts.
I'm sorry. It just it just fell out. I try to behave myself. I'm good. Let's created by a man. We've been suffering ever since.
Don't forget the bikini.
Okay. You know what I mean?
That's where the term
We
bombshell
were
come
butt
from.
naked in Martinique. I have pictures and images of my people. We were happy. We started putting on clothes. They called us savages. We were free. We didn't have to come home from work, taking off all our armor. We didn't have no problems. We're
Look,
happy.
you know why they call women in bikinis a bombshell, right?
Oh, why?
You know, Bikini Island, the first place they had tested the atomic bomb.
What?
Go look it up.
What do you mean? They test, expand upon that.
Okay, the Manhattan Project was the project to develop the atomic bomb.
Yes.
Okay. First of all, did you know that it wasn't the people they told us invented? They said they attributed the atomic bomb to Einstein based on his theory of relativity and the
Relativity.
splitting of the
Yes.
atom. Okay,
Yes.
now that didn't make the bomb. Lloyd Quartermain, he was the physicist who designed the atomic bomb. With his physicist team, they was all melanated.
Say his name again. I know that name. Say it again.
Lloyd Quartermain, nuclear physicist.
Okay.
Okay, now once they gave them the design to the bomb, they had to test it. So the first bomb they tested was Bikini Island. That's what the records say.
Okay. Okay.
So now when you see the woman in the bikini, the slang
Oh,
references she's a bombshell.
historical references are everything. Oh my God. That is terrible.
This the rabbit hole deep. I don't
Okay.
even think got a bottom to that sucker.
Uh, uh, wow. Anyway, I don't want to keep you all night. We could talk for like days.
Yeah. You wanna does somebody in the
Let's
chat
ask
see?
questions. You want to talk to people? Have
Yeah.
fun. You ready? You know, I'm impromptu. You good? Want to ask?
Hey.
Can I ask you a question? I have a friend who asked you a question because she asked a while ago. So she wanted to know what's your thought on Lucifer? Lucifer, the son of the morning. I'm gonna
I'm
chase
gonna
you
get
off the
you out
morning.
of here. So the term Lucifer is Latin, mean the bearer of light, the
Mhm.
light bearer,
Yeah.
right? If you ever notice on the Paramount Studios, they got the woman holding up the torch.
Yes.
The original light bearer was the woman of the house called the Pharaoh. The irony is historical record has transposed Pharaoh from the
Yeah.
feminine mother of the house
The male.
to the male.
Yeah.
But when you trace the etymology in Kemet, it's in reference to the queen, and the person who was her front man is the male figure that they're referring to in modern times as the pharaoh. He wasn't the one.
Mm.
He was just a representative from the family that the true pharaoh or the true lighthouse, because you know they say pharaoh mean lighthouse,
Yeah.
house light,
Yeah.
right? And they attributed to a lighthouse that was on the Mediterranean that's under the water now in the Mediterranean because of war. Anyway, the original Lucifer was a reference, a Latin reference to the Great Mother.
Well, we knew it was female. Yeah, that's one thing we had found out. Yeah.
So they refer to Lucifer in occult teachings as Sophia.
Mm.
Now, when you look in the union in Kemet, it's always the union between Tehuti, wisdom, the wise man, and Sophia, the wise woman. But the woman was always the symbol of the pinnacle of wisdom, the highest point of wisdom. The man has to plug into the woman,
Mhm.
right?
To access the light, the
Right,
enlightenment. Yeah.
right. And this enlightenment is where you derive your term Lucifer from,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they use Prometheus as the prototype of the man who stole the fire of the gods to enlighten humanity.
Mm. Just like
That's
the
the
movie.
reference, but
Yeah.
that's the reference to the Statue of Liberty.
Yes. Yes.
And the Statue of Liberty is a model of the painting of Lucifer in Europe.
Mm-hmm. But the original
Right.
statue they didn't take, which had a tether and chain on her leg.
But it still got the tether and chain on there.
Really? Maybe.
The Statue of Liberty still
It
has
still
the
has
tether
it?
and the
Oh, okay.
chain.
Okay.
All they did was put a dress on him. That's it. They didn't do nothing different.
They try to clothe her again. You see the problem? Tether her and put her on chains and put clothing on her, ruin her.
Right. But
Yeah.
in this case, the Statue of Liberty was the symbol for the drag queens and the drag race across the land to conquer. And that's why all of the mayors was men when a mayor is a female horse. But when it was under our rule, the mayor was the mother of the town.
Mm. Mère in French, it means mother. Ma mère. Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that
And the
crazy?
female horse is a mare and the male horse is a stallion.
Yeah. Even though Meg the Stallion is a whole oxymoron, unless you see her balls in between her legs, but
Well, it fell out at one of her
it
concerts.
did. And she's been trying to tuck it ever since. But we won't go into the
But it's
trans
more than one
investigation.
Megan. It's at least three of them.
Oh, yeah, I can
It's a,
believe it. You gotta
and
have
one of them is actually a female, but the big burly one, you can tell the difference in the shoulders and in the facial structure, but they
well,
look a lot alike.
well, we have a trans investigation a specialist in my group, and we found out that if your arms right here, if it's high, men have it higher up, so if it doesn't match the belly button, that's a man. A woman, it will always match her belly button. It'll go to her belly button. And the
It,
shoulders will always be right to her waist. It won't go extend outward. So big up to the trans investigator, Selma.
it was more than one Kamala Harris too.
Oh, I saw versions of her. Yeah. I personally like the drunk one. The one that was
That,
smoking blunts, because after her and Cardi B, I'm sure she smoked a blunt and had a sip of Hennessy after she was done. You know what I mean? That's the drunk one. That's the one I like the best. I don't want her to win because him, her, he, well, whoever it was, you gotta be somewhat sober, you know.
so the reason why they use her for the psyop because of her tenacious prosecuting mentality.
A brown man.
She didn't know when she went in that when she thought as a prosecutor she was doing what's in the greatest good of the people. She didn't care. She was just trying to get her numbers up, right? And we suffered at her hands. But as a prosecuting attorney, she was good at what she did, good enough that the frazzle drip video that they showed her when they asked her to play that part made her throw up. And she said, how do we stop this shit? And then they brought her in, reconditioned her psychologically, so to speak, so that she understand what's really going on. Joe Biden been gone since 2017.
Yeah, he was assassinated.
They've been using actors and skin masks.
Yeah.
The final straw was when he came out and he was damn near 7 feet tall. I was like, that's just too much. That's just too much. They went too far now. And the people still didn't see it. It's at least 3 Trumps.
Yeah, we saw it. There's another one. There's another one. There's another one. The one with the gold tie now. This one wears gold and purple tie. It's not the same as the red tie. This one's got big hair. Like I don't know if the hair plug thing
Oh, you ain't seen his new hairstyle? He just got a new hairstyle the other
He
day.
got the hair plugs. I don't know if he got them
Look, he got
reconfigured.
slick back now.
Oh, wait, what? So he changed it. Oh, God, the
Look,
shapeshifter.
go to TikTok and type in Trump new hair.
Oh, snap. So he's just shapeshifted again. I love it. I'm all about
He
the
don't
shift.
look like Howard the Duck no more.
Snap. Yeah. Let me ask you a question since we're here, because I would love your take on it. I know everyone, if you have questions, and we're going to kind of take questions if you're okay, bring them in, which is more fun because we can talk to them in person. But just a question to our friendly guest, Rod. What do you think about this Trump making declarations before he's even hit the White House? What do you think about that?
He's been still the president the last 4 years.
Exactly. He just didn't want to take the props for all the psyops and the crazy.
Well, this is what happened. When he got in office and the White House was doing the strategy of how to get the deep state out, right? They realized that it's going to take way longer than anticipated. So they needed another presidential reign in the middle of his reign in order to stretch his time out from 8 years to 12. Right now, all of the stuff that he would have been doing in his second term during the Biden administration, that was on hold because of the PSYOP. Remember, they was running in tunnels globally.
Mm-hmm.
They was blowing up bunkers globally.
Yep.
If you go to the earthquake chart, you will know the bunker busters because they range between 2.3 and 2.5
That's
on the
right.
Richter scale.
So they're not strong enough to be actually, they're not coming from under, they're kind of like sub tier. Yeah.
Now, when you have a large enough cavern, it creates a sinkhole on the ground. Remember
Mm.
all them sinkholes that was
Mm-hmm.
popping up in 2020?
Yep. Absolutely.
If you
Absolutely.
go back to 3 days before, 2 to 3 days before that, and monitor up to the sinkhole appeared, you will see that there's like a 2.7 or 2.8
It was a lot
on
of
the
different
Richter.
places. Yeah. There were a lot of different places where that 2.7 was showing up, 2.4, 2.5, 2.7. Yeah.
But anything over 2.5, you're looking for a sinkhole above the ground.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a tunnel,
If
because
it's
it's not just a
it'll
tunnel
buckle
now, it's a
underneath the
huge
ground.
cavern.
Yeah.
Yeah, they blew a lot of them.
You're making the coyotes, you wrestling the coyotes out there. They hollering and yeah, yeah. Much true. And also with what was happening, well, we knew the adrenochrome was drying up when he did that whole lockdown because celebrities' faces were looking like a hot mess during that time because they weren't getting a fix of children's blood that they were nicely taking from the pineal gland. You know, they were drying up. Because I heard one of the biggest factories in China, I don't know if it was in China or somewhere, it blew up. They blew it up.
Yeah, they blew up a couple of them. It was several of them in Europe, and there was a couple of them over here.
Mhm,
The first ones they blew up was over here.
mhm. Yeah, they didn't
Right.
have, Ellen and all her cronies were looking like, the witches of like the underground tunnel.
And nobody don't know they all look like they had a facelift without going to a doctor over the last 2 years.
Hmm.
Right. And remember, the lowest human trafficking rate in the history since they've been doing it that's been recorded was from 2020 to 2021.
Yes, because children were in the house. There was a lot of lockdowns. They weren't having access to children as easily. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the same time all of the celebrities start shriveling up.
Yeah. Doing lives from their houses in their pajamas.
With the ankle bracelets on. Don't leave that
Absolutely.
part out.
Absolutely.
Pretending like they ain't indicted.
So you think that do you think Trump is really going to be, because many people, not, it isn't I have a totally different opinion. Do you think that he's here to save humanity? Do you think he's on the side of the citizens?
Um, he on the side of the tribes.
Mm,
Okay, let me give you a little background on Trump since we want to get into him. Donald Trump, from the time he was in college, was a very lucrative financier to the Black Panther Party, to the Black Liberation Army, and a few other groups. He inherited a slumlord business from his father, right? He clashed with locals who wanted him to clean up his buildings. And the legal team around him was trying to isolate him and not let him talk to those people. So Trump went hanging out in New York at the clubs with the artists.
yes, it is.
And that's where he was able to meet chiefs that was concealed by circumstance, but was still on the land in New York, like Shinnecock and some of the other ones from
Yeah.
the area. And they told him about the slumlord. So this is what made him transition from being a slumlord to building those
Hi,
Trump
and
plazas and
yeah,
all that,
yeah,
right? And it also got his money up. Now, Trump loved Ronald Reagan and he loved JFK.
he did. He did.
And he developed a vendetta after the attempted assassination of Ronald Reagan. He knew George Herbert Walker Bush was behind it because he was in the circle of the ones in the know. During the Reagan campaign, they was questioning Trump about running for president. Most of us don't remember that. Even Barbara Walters
Yeah, the
did an
interview.
interview
I
with
saw the
him.
interview. Yeah, yeah.
He didn't want to run for president.
Not at that time.
Here's the thing: if you don't want the job, you're the person we want.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now he's too, I would say, soft to be a president. The kind they need to call out the dirty players. So where did he go to get trained? He went to wrestling to get trained to be what they call a heel, the bad guy.
Mm.
Trained by Vince McMahon himself, one of the worst human beings on the planet. Once he left there, they needed to give him the dry run to see if he had assimilate being a good asshole. So he was the apprentice, and they got us believing that all of the people coming to see him with their business proposals were apprentices, and all the time he was the apprentice proving that he could be an asshole.
Interesting.
After the apprentice ended, all of a sudden it's time for him to start preparing for presidential election. Good coincidences, ain't it?
They were training him, like they were training a prince or someone going into a position of power.
Yep. And now, if you go back to who was his associates before he was being trained, all his pictures is with Mike Tyson.
That's right.
A
lot of brown celebrities. A lot of brown celebrities.
Yeah. He got pictures with Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson. He got pictures with almost every hip hop artist from New York that was big in the 80s is in pictures. Run DMC.
Mentioned a lot of rap, hip hop, music.
So I knew that he was picked when Tupac said, let's take Donald Trump, for instance. I don't care if he got a gazillion dollars. No one person, right, should have all that money and his people starving and homeless. He was telling you, watch the Orange Man.
I remember Orange was the New Black.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Now, go back to his casino business, and these people that he said, they don't look like Indians to me, and they don't look like Indians to him. Now, you can say politically correct, they don't look like Indians to me, and all your
like, I'm sorry.
sir.
He was like, they don't look like it. I don't know what you're saying. Yeah, that was
because they was given
because it shit talks. He was actually, because New York has their tribe and their brown people, which most people don't know about. They're fully in their tribal form. Like, they have not changed physiologically. They're brown people.
Remember earlier I told you I inherited Chief Pontiac's War, Tupac inherited Tupac Amaru War, Biggie inherited Chief Sitting Bull's War.
Cool.
And ODB inherited Chief Crazy Horse War.
Yes.
And I can go on. I can go to the Wu-Tang and start naming who all of the chiefs inherited they war. Raekwon the Chef, because he got an eye with him. He don't need an eye in the name. That means he got another guy that can see beyond sight. Right? And when you go to the images, right, you start seeing all this stuff. Right? Then all of these chiefs is 50 main chiefs. I'm big 50. I'm the last one to come up. Because we have to be able to get our people back into the proper position on the land in order for us to reclaim the land.
Exactly.
But the first thing we have to understand is we own the land. We caretakers of the land. The land owns us.
Yes, so that is one of the things that all of us from our native groups knew, that when the Europeans came and thought of ownership of land, we never perceived that because we knew that we were caretakers on the land. We
Yeah.
cultivated the land. We didn't ownership. Ownership was foreign to us. Still is.
That's why all the chiefs used to tell them, they be like, we're going to give you these trinkets for this land. They're like, the land? We can't sell you no land. No
Because
chief can sell land.
we live on the
First
land.
of all, the land, if you want land, you got to go through Big Mama. Period. If you want to apply the land, she give you a plot to settle on. She gave y'all 13 places to set up a colony.
Mm-hmm.
And now you want to disrespect her.
Mm-hmm.
They come in and overrun her jurisdictional authority as the law of the land,
Mm-hmm.
which started the wars. Because remember, America has always took in the world's orphans.
Absolutely.
It's been like that since the days of the Great Atlan,
Mm-hmm.
that they call Atlantis.
It was refuge
Mm-hmm.
for
The
many.
great melting pot,
Mm-hmm.
where we take the orphans from all over the world. We didn't have no orphans when they got here because everybody was assigned parents.
Right. Whether they were blood
Right.
or not.
Now, when they was blocking institutions with pale faces, we had a remedy for that shit. We need some friendly pale faces. So we opened up Ellis Island.
Mm-hmm.
Immigrants didn't used to come in through New York. That was barred. Immigrants used to come in through NOLA, what they
That's
call
right.
today New Orleans.
Yes. Yes.
You didn't come in because you had to go to the Big Easy to find your temperament, so we know where to send you on the land so you don't cause problems everywhere you go.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So this is why New Orleans is the training ground for Las Vegas, Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, Detroit, Miami,
Mm.
Atlanta, DC, Newark. Well, every major metropolis, the training ground before you were sent there from the fields or from the family farm, you had to go to New Orleans first.
Mm-hmm.
Period. You didn't just go and just march out across the land like the colonists did. So they only had a handful of pale faces with them when they came, and they used them to block institutions in something called the brown paper bag test.
Yeah. Yes.
And they told the pale faces at the gate that if they don't pass the brown paper bag test, don't let them in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all of the institutions. So now we blocked out of the institution. Remember I told you about Confessions of an Economic Hitman?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Remember all them outlaw bank robbers
Yes.
from the Wild Wild West?
Yes.
They was robbing Big Mama banks.
Mm.
Big Mama started shutting her banks down, so then the Federal Reserve started extending its reach.
Mm-hmm.
You ain't gonna keep stealing from Big Mama and it don't be a consequence. Right? So all the Big Mama banks being shut down, we still ain't broke. We just don't know it yet. But if you go to the movie National Treasure with Nicolas Cage, when he go into the underground in New York and come out in DC and he see all that gold underground and them
Yes.
artifacts,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
that's Big Mama Bank. Her colors is black and gold. That's why Trump wearing the gold tie.
Mm. Mm. Representing the Federal Reserve. Or what
Yep.
it was.
And then the purple tie means it's the unification of the Red House and the Blue House,
Mm-hmm.
the Royal Arc Degree.
Mm.
He's telling us all in his attire because Masons
Absolutely.
speak through ties.
Absolutely.
One of their favorite things is tell me how to tie a bow tie.
Mm. All right, we gotta get questions because we're gonna be here all night, y'all. I'm 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 really excited. Thank you so much, Rod, for even coming over here and kikiing with you. You're teaching me a lot too, and I appreciate it. And really with our young people and people just who are not aware, you're like a walking thesaurus, like you're like a walking historical reference to all of the different things that most people don't know about or can't put together. So I'm
You know,
grateful.
they called me in prison, Dr. Rod, the Walking University.
Listen, you are the ultimate scholar. I thought I was under the tutelage of some scholars. I think you quite up in that rank. So I appreciate it.
I'm
But
the
let's take,
master student to the master teachers. That's
yeah,
all.
know what I'm saying?
So
Okay.
now they send me out to tutor the rest.
I I appreciate it. Now I understand why they were trying to shut you down because you're like an epilogue of so much information. I would see someone trying to target you to try to deflect or take away from who you are so that you're not able to get your message out to the masses. Shame on them. Okay,
Well, I'm a stoic too, and the obstacle is the way. You don't believe me? Ask Ryan Holiday.
Okay, hold on. I'm gonna share the link. So for y'all who are wanting to join, Zumbies, I'm gonna be on afterwards. So me and Rod are having a kiki. We just enjoying the build. So I will see you in the later hours. But for those who want to
Oh,
join,
I got to send a shout out to Drea Boss Milan out there in Vegas because she was the one who showed me the video where you was the last one. I don't want to get into
oh
what it
yeah,
was
yeah,
about,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
yeah, and
I
she was
appreciate it.
she,
And I have to, and the person who made was able to get us together is Arlo. So Barlow from my group, Arlo from DC, big up to DC, Maryland, big up to Arlo, who was able to make this happen, to bring the awareness of both of us and kind of cinch the two together. So I appreciate it. Okay, well, hold on, y'all. You know, I'm not techie. I'm so slow when it comes to some of these things. Hold on. Come on. Da-da-da. Okay. Okay. I'm going to attend copy clipboard. Okay, so I'm going to put the for
link.
those who are coming in, I'm going to click you in to the live. Now, there are rules and regulations. If you come in here, you have to be cammed up. Please come in here cammed up, just like you see us. I always like to see the eyes. Do you blind eyes? I want to see your eyes. I want to see you. So make sure you cammed up. Come in for one question because a few people I'm sure want to have a conversation or add something to the build. So come in, ask one thing or say one thing and just let other people be able to come in, okay? And that's it. That's the only requirement.
Well, you put that up. Somebody say when the real ships come, how we gonna know whether to get on? Don't get on those ships. I'm
You know,
telling
they
you
don't
now.
require you. They don't require you to get on the
No,
ship.
the Earthborn stand on Earth, and anything that ain't from Earth, they taking it away. So if you get on that ship, you gonna be food for the Anuna guys. I'm gonna tell you now. They eat people.
The movie is To Serve Man. Hold on. To serve man. If you don't know what that is, watch that episode. Nothing that is coming galactically, because I come from that sector, would ever require anything of you. You would already have